we're going to go ahead and begin the Monterey County Planning Commission of April 30, 2025. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. And with that, would Commissioner Mendoza lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Thank you. With that, could we please go ahead and have roll call?
Commissioner Getzelman?
Here.
Commissioner Mendoza?
Here.
Commissioner Gomez?
Here.
Commissioner Hartzell? Here. Commissioner Gonzalez?
Here.
Commissioner Work?
Here.
Commissioner Monsalve?
Here.
Commissioner Shaw?
Here.
Commissioner Deal?
Here.
Commissioner Roberts?
Here.
Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you very much. And with that, I guess this would be the time to inform the public that might be out there through Zoom or through an email in terms of how they would be able to communicate with the Planning Commission.
Thank you, Chair. While we wait for I'll get started while we wait for the directions to come up on screen for those watching from home and in chambers. But today's meeting is hybrid. And for those of you who are participating remotely via the Zoom platform, we invite you to participate in the meeting through public comment as appropriate for the items today. To do so, there are various ways you can do so. During the public comment time for any agenda item, you may raise your hand on the Zoom platform by pressing the reactions button and raising hand and lowering it. That's down in the bottom of your screen. If you've joined by phone, you can press star 9 raises your hand and lowers it. When it is time for public comment and it is your turn, you will be acknowledged by the clerk of the commission. And at that time, you can unmute yourself using clicking the microphone button at the bottom of your Zoom screen if you're on computer, or by pressing star 6 to mute and unmute via phone. We also have an email address. That you can send comments in during the hearing, and we do try to monitor it throughout the meeting. That hearing address is pchearingcomments@countyofmonterey.gov. Again, that's pchearingcomments@countyofmonterey.gov. All right, and you can see on our slides, if you missed any of that, we'll just leave it up for a couple of seconds before we move on to our Wordly information for those who may need translation services. Next slide, please. All right, so the Planning Commission is very happy to announce that we continue a 6-month pilot program utilizing interpretation services via Wordly. You can join the meeting via Wordly for those translation services, either by scanning the QR code that is on your screen or by going to the website that is down at the bottom left of the screen as well. Once you join Wordly, You may choose your language of preference and click to attend. In addition, you can read captions on your device, and they're also projected here in chambers. If you're here in chambers requiring translation services, you may come forward and get a headset from my colleague Armida at the front. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is public comments, and this is the time set aside for the public to comment on a matter that is not on the agenda. So if you would have about 3 minutes. So if anybody here in the chambers or anybody through Zoom that would like to address the commission, this would be the time to do it. I don't see anybody in the chambers coming forward, so do we have anybody through Zoom? Anybody through Zoom?
There are no hands up and no additional emails on Zoom.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to the next item on the agenda, we have, do we have any agenda additions, deletions and corrections and/or corrections?
For the record, we received and distributed additional correspondence for agenda item number 1, referral number 22.02A, 1982 General Plan Analysis and Big Sur Coast Land Use Plan. Agenda item number 4, Signal Hill LLC.
Thank you. And I'm assuming that some of those documents are in the back desk down there for anybody wanting to get a hold of that.
Yes, they are in the back table.
Thank you. Because this is next agenda item, and that's for commissioner comments and requests, and this is a time set aside for commissioners to comment, request, or refer a matter that is not on the agenda. Any commissioners? Seeing none, we move forward on to referrals, and we go to item number 1, referral 22.02A, 1982 General Plan Analysis and Big Sur Coast Land Use Plan. And so the staff will make a presentation on that.
Can we share staff right? Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners and Chair Gonzalez, Katie Scaria, Assistant Planner. Today I'm joined by my colleague Taylor Price, Senior Planner working out of class. Today staff will be providing a report on Planning Commission Referral 22.2A, General Plan Analysis and Big Sur Coast Land Use Plan. For some background, Planning Commission Referral 22.2A was requested by the Planning Commission to analyze which requirements have been satisfied in the certified Big Sur Coast Land Use Plan. All general plans shall be consistent with the mandatory requirements set forth in California state law. Staff is currently working on updating the Big Sur Coast Land Use Plan. This process is ongoing and will address the mandatory requirements. There are 8 required elements in a general plan: land use, circulation, noise, conservation, open space, environmental justice, housing, and safety. The following slides will outline the content of each element as required by statute and identify if the certified Big Sur Coast Land Use Plan currently satisfies the requirements. For the land use section of the Big Sur Coast Land Use Plan, it currently satisfies the requirements outlined in Government Code Section 65302A and 650-302B1. For the circulation section of the Big Sur Coast Land Use Plan, it will need to include discussion on transportation needs of children, persons with disabilities, and seniors, and will need to discuss potential funding sources for any infrastructure updates. The Big Sur Coast Land Use Plan currently does not have a noise section and has minimal discussion of noise. A noise element in a general plan shall identify and appraise noise problems within the community. It should identify and map noise contours, which shall be used as a guide for establishing a pattern of land uses, shall include implementation measures and possible solutions to existing and foreseeable noise problems. The conservation section of the Big Sur Coast Land Use Plan should include updates to the floodplain maps if newer or more accurate maps are available. There shall be a plan that includes an action program with specific programs for preservation and conservation of open space. The open space element should include a discussion of actions that can be taken to conserve open space and required preservation areas. HCD is currently working on the environmental justice element, housing element, and safety element. These updates will be separate from the Big Sur Coast LUP update and therefore were not analyzed during this analysis, as those elements will be implemented countywide and are currently ongoing through a separate approval process. There are 4 sections of the Big Sur Coast Land Use Plan that will need amendments: circulation, conservation, and open space will need minor edits and will be concurrent with the Big Sur Coast Land Use Plan. The noise section, however, will require significant work from staff and a separate timeline between 3 to 6 months, as the Big Sur Coast Land Use Plan does not currently have a noise section. The Big Sur Coast Land Use Plan will return to the Planning Commission in the spring or summer of 2025. The Big Sur Coast Land Use Plan will then go through a certification process. The certification process includes approval from the Planning Commission, Board of Supervisors, and the California Coastal Commission. This concludes staff's presentation. Staff is available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, I bring it back to the Planning Commission. Does any of the commissioners have any questions? Commissioner Deal?
Thank you. I don't know if it's a question so much as an explanation of the referral, which I in fact made. The reason for this referral is based in the decades-long history of the Big Sur Land Use Update process. We've gone back and forth throughout this process about whether the land use plan should rely on and amend the 1982, now 43-year-old general plan, or whether it should be a standalone plan based on the idea that the 1982 general plan was not going to be amended in time to do any good. And besides, you could hardly write a land use plan that explained how your area was going to be different from the general plan if you don't know what that general plan is. So my basic question was for a reading and direction from the Planning Commission to resolve this ongoing question of whether we're going to do a standalone plan or a plan that depends on 1982 and that outlines the differences for our Big Sur Coast Land Use Plan from our 1982 general plan. What we've gotten here is a clear understanding of what the elements that are required to be in a general plan are, but what we don't have is clarity on this subject. And so what I'm looking for here is that basic question. It is my personal opinion, and I understand that there may be more to it than that a coastal land use plan in this environment, and that would include Big Sur and all the other coastal land use plans, needs to stand alone. We have no plan, guidelines, funding, or schedule for updating the 1982, and I want to keep saying 1982, general plan. So instead of waiting for a larger holistic effort, it is my belief that we need to use each of these land use plans as a standalone document. Therefore, from my point of view, all of the elements required in a general plan need to be addressed in the Big Sur Coast Land Use Plan completely. so that when you look at that land use plan, you're not referring back to any other document. So there are elements in here that we are proposing to amend globally for the County of Monterey. And that raises a question for me about whether those amendments will then be certified through the Coastal Commission and the coastal zones and applied to the various land use plans. And if so, if a land use plan has considerations that are unique, which is why we have land use plans, what those should outline based on a yet as unknown series of elements that are going to be put forward county-wide. So we are still fighting this kind of lack of clarity in my mind about what needs to be in a land use plan and what should await county general action. And so that's where I find this referral very informative. It tells us what we need to do. But I would advocate that the elements of environmental justice, housing, and safety need to be memorialized in such a way in each of our coastal land use plans, starting with this update, so that that land use plan can stand alone pending the update of the 1982 general plan. You know, it's more of a statement than a question, but it's the entire issue I wanted laid out in this referral.
Thank you. And I guess it's like, where are we or what are we going to do about it? And so with that, Madam Secretary, I saw that.
Yeah, I think just a couple of responses to that. I think one, just to provide clarity, staff does recommend that we integrate the general plan elements into each land use plan update. When we do it, we're not recommending doing a comprehensive update of a 1982 general plan. So, but I acknowledge that was not clear leading into it, which is why we first focused on the Big Sur LUP, because that is active right now to identify what would need to be updated. So staff is recommending that we incorporate the updates needed for the 4 elements, should that be desired by the Planning Commission while we're in the Big Sur LUP at this time, and have it be a part of that comprehensive update discussion with the community and public. Though that does have some potential costs and some timeline impacts that we wanted to be transparent about. With regards to the current general plan elements that are moving forward, the housing element, the safety element, as well as the environmental justice element. So at this time, staff's not prepared to speak to specifically how those elements will be memorialized into the local coastal plan, because we are determining that based on those elements as a part of the process that we're going through, and would envision that any amendments that would need to come as a result of those plans, and or we will, through those plans, be doing consistency analysis with the existing land use plans. We would identify if there are any conflicts that are absent, but those overarching elements need to be adopted first to then identify what might need to be tailored from there. And so staff is recommending that we keep those 2 processes separate, and that when we come forward on those elements, we can provide the local coastal program kind of analysis and steps that would be recommended for those elements as they move forward through their processes. But we are not recommending to hold up the timeline at this time for, in particular, the Big Sur LUP that's been in process. And if they happen to dovetail and merge, then that would be appropriate to pull them together. So that was staff's thinking on how to handle the general plan elements that are in motion currently as they pertain to the LCP. So I hope that clarifies a little bit, and we're happy to provide additional discussion and or come back with some additional clarification as well.
Commissioner Deal?
Thank you. Yes, that's very helpful. Thank you, Madam Secretary. The issue that I have here is, first, there's a question. So these new elements will be entered into the 1982 general plan and then approved by the Coastal Commission before they come into effect. Is that true?
So the Coastal Commission, I know, does not approve the housing element. That does not go through the Coastal Commission. I am not prepared to speak on safety element, environmental justice element. We will go back and review that for clarity in process for coastal.
Okay, and so question number 2 is, in the event that the general update of any of these elements introduces something that is inconsistent with the overall guiding principles and statements that are in the Big Sur Coast Land Use Plan, for example, there will be an opportunity for that discussion to occur prior to implementing the overall plan so that we don't end up in conflict. Is that true?
That is correct. So staff is right now has gone through and done an analysis for our general plan, for all of our zoning ordinances, as well as our land use plans and area plans, to analyze where we see any policy conflicts between the housing element and those plans. So staff is in process of compiling that analysis to identify if, in this case, any of the coastal areas if the housing element update would prompt updates to Title 20 for zoning in the coastal zone, as well as updates to any of the land use plans. And that will be something that we accompany. We're waiting to finalize that analysis pending getting the next iteration of the draft and getting feedback from the state to make sure that we've been comprehensive in our analysis.
Through the chair. That really illustrates my concern, which is that the state adopted housing element then becomes the guiding principles for the county, becomes the law for the county, and then the land use plans are updated to address that through their zoning ordinances. There's no middle in there which says that if the land use plan didn't envision that particular event or that particular series of priorities in the housing element and doesn't feel it's consistent with the land use plan, there's a big gap of what happens when then, because it's like, okay, we have a housing opportunity site element, it is identified in the state plan, we need it for our housing numbers, and again, I don't know that this is particularly Big Sur, it's more of a general question, but it could be. And so the housing element identifies these things, we then change the land use plan to reflect the housing element, and that's at the root of the question that my referral brings forward, is what are we going to use as the guidance? So if we need to say in the Big Sur land use plan, notwithstanding what any housing element subsequently says, these are the things we want to do, we should say that. And if we say whatever the housing element says is what we should do, we should say that.
Understood.
Okay. Any other commissioners? Commissioner Hartzell?
This is a timing question. I really appreciate hearing you do concurrent planning processes. That's virtuous in my opinion. But I'm wondering if any of these elements under separate process is going to affect moving forward with the Big Sur land use plan or vice versa.
Through the chair, it is our understanding that that will not impact the Big Sur Coast Land Use Plan update.
So for clarity, there are 8 mandated sections. The 3 elements that we are updating currently countywide, we do not intend and do not foresee impacting the Big Sur LUP update timeline. For the 4 elements that are required to be addressed, that are not up to date and consistent with state law in the Big Sur land use planning area, that was circulation, open space, noise, and one other one that staff will refresh, but those 4. 3 of those could be folded in relatively seamlessly, concurrently. Staff could begin working on those updates with the ad hoc committee and then have that be a part of the public input process for the Big Sur LUP update that's already undergoing. We wouldn't expect 3 of those elements to significantly impact timeline. It might add, a little bit for just staff deliberation and depending on extent of conversation with the public and ad hoc committee on those elements, but they do seem to be minor to comply. The noise element requirements, however, that is a more substantive process because of the need to really develop those requirements and contour maps. So that staff did estimate could add 3 to 6 months. It would be kind of an independent process. We would need to work with our ITD department to get those maps updated and then have more of a directive conversation around noise with Big Sur reflective of that. So that could affect the noise, incorporating those noise requirements in the Big Sur LUP could have more of an effect on the LUP timeline. But again, staff generally anticipates, based on what we've seen, that would be a 3 to 6 month addition to it, with the assumption we don't need outside consulting services to support that.
And through the chair, the 4 sections that would need amendments are circulation, conservation, open space, and noise. Thank you.
Through the chair, I saw a public comment about concern regarding opportunities to comment on the countywide elements. And if we incorporate by reference those larger elements that haven't been certified or commented on yet, is there any concern that there's going to be a missing opportunity there, or like we're integrating something that hasn't received consideration by the community that's commenting on the plan?
I mean, my initial thought, based on the 3 elements currently that are in the works, there are elements of it that, especially for the safety in particular, because it does incorporate wildfire evacuation analysis and other things generally for the county. So there are some broader elements that individual areas may not be paying as close attention to. I view that as more of an issue that we're trying to work with on those general plan element countywide updates to make sure that we are pushing out through all our respective communities for engagement to make sure that they are paying attention to those pieces that would be relevant. I think that's more the approach that I look is we need to make sure, and I think generally we do, for example, incorporate, if we have our Big Sur land use plan update distribution list, we try to pull them in on steps in the process that would be more relevant or could impact the Big Sur area through these other planning processes. We would include that distribution list as a part of the general distribution. So I don't know if that answers it directly because I hadn't contemplated it, but that's how staff has been viewing it, is to treat these as countywide processes and then try to amplify our outreach in the particular areas as appropriate for pieces that could get missed because it's not solely targeted on the individual planning areas or communities. In terms of how staff's not prepared to speak to whether or not we integrate specifically either that the kind of what the governing document is. Definitely the general plan governs over land use plans. But again, we need to go through what is coming up in those countywide elements that would pertain to coastal zone planning areas or other unique planning areas. Do that analysis to see, one, is there any inconsistency initially, and then identify a pathway for those planning areas if it would prompt potential updates or needs to go further. So so I can't speak more specifically to it, but that is the approach that staff's been taking.
Any other commissioners? Commissioner Deal?
Thank you. It's kind of like punching jello and tracking chickens and eggs and all that kind of stuff, I know. Is it possible for us, here's an example. In Big Sur, the emerging issue surrounding noise is a big deal for all kinds of reasons, including land use designations. Is it possible for the Big Sur land use plan to make statements about how we would view noise in those contexts prior to creating the noise element in the 1982 General Plan Amendment?
So what staff is recommending is that we would actually develop the noise element components within the Big Sur LUP update process specific to Big Sur. So yes, we would look to engage, do the state mandated analyses and mapping that's required, and then engage the policy discussion for Big Sur. What does this mean for Big Sur? And that we integrate that as a part of the Big Sur land use plan update. County is not doing a countywide noise update at this time.
So that would be specific to each individual land use plan, a one-off.
Yes.
Thank
correct.
you.
Any other commissioners? Commissioner Gomez?
Just wanted to reiterate that this process would also apply to all the other coastal land use plans, including North County.
Yeah, so yes, generally speaking, a little bit of caveat on there. So we have, for example, the Moss Landing Community Plan that has been underway being updated for quite a significant amount of time. We've not done this analysis specific to Moss Landing, which is a portion of the North County area plan. Our goal would be, as we are amending the other land use plans, so North County Coastal LUP, Del Monte Forest LUP, and Carmel Area LUP in the future, we would incorporate these elements at that time. So it would apply to all, but we don't have specific timeframes on those future amendment timelines for the other area plan areas.
Commissioner Roberts?
I guess that was kind of my question also. I heard you say that this isn't going to affect the timeline of the Big Sur land use plan, but I guess I'm not completely sure how it doesn't.
So for clarity, there are the three sections, the element requirements for circulation, open space, and conservation. Based on staff's analysis, those would require relatively minor edits to meet the state mandates. And we anticipate that those could fold in relatively seamlessly to the current timeline. It is the noise element requirements that would add time. And staff's preliminary estimate would be, not less than 3, likely up to 6 months, that it could add additional time for some of the more technical work that would be needed to support that. And then, of course, depending on how robust the conversation with the commission and the public are on, in particular, those noise issues.
Just to follow up, and then with regard to the Moss Landing Community Plan, I think I understood that you said that in some ways that plan is too far down the road to add these elements or do the same thing?
Yes, given where that community plan has been, staff at this time, we haven't done the formal analysis, but at this time it was not our intention to derail that process. We've already initiated the environmental review and have a draft of that LUP that's kind of settled. It does not mean we can't add it in. I think first staff wanted to do this analysis for Big Sur because Big Sur was in the best timing and location to be able to do the analysis and know we could fold it in. And then now that we've done it, our next step will be to apply it to Moss Landing and see if we can incorporate components now and what that might look like.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other commissioners? Well, I do have a question. How are the different areas or communities going to be informed about the process and input, let's say, for example, is the information going to be sent through the newspapers? Is it going to be posted in some link in the website? Is there going to be some type of electronic survey that would be posted on the internet where people might want to add or not add information, so that all that information is accumulated, whether people can make the meetings or not? And I'm not sure, like, how do we get to communicate through the community?
So overall, we try to do all of that, depending on the various plans and policies that the department's working on. Specifically for the current general plan elements that we're updating countywide, we have a fairly specific outreach strategy that we've been implementing based on those that kind of entails all of that. So without going into each specific one, we do our best with staff to do a combination of definite public noticing. We do try to do general and targeted social media outreach. We try to target language and kind of community appropriate methodologies in a lot of our unincorporated communities, particularly our communities that are lower resourced and or are not predominantly English speaking, to also tailor our outreach in those communities for our housing element, our safety and environmental justice. We've done a series of community surveys where we've both broadly broadcast those out in the community as well as tried to really tailor and get those out. We do library pop-ups throughout the communities at different stages in the process. So we try to do a combination of all of that when we start individual community level planning processes. So for example, with the Big Sur community plan, we really tried to build up and work through the community organizations and groups that work in Big Sur community to help push that out and make sure that we are targeting the best venues to get public notice out to the broader Big Sur community. We're just initiating our Chular community plan. We're doing the same. We're working with partners and through our consultant team to really tailor the outreach to that community. And we also, what we hear from surveys we've done, for example, for housing element, environmental justice element, we look at the data for those individual communities and we try to pull that in and vice versa. So we try to minimize input fatigue from the community by making sure we as staff pull in information from these different planning efforts across. So it's not perfect. We miss people and we acknowledge that and we do the best we can. But that is generally, with everything that's moving now, the approach that we've been using for the various different pieces and elements.
Well, thank you. I was under the assumption that the county did all that and more. I just wanted to make sure that those in the chambers and those that are on Zoom out there and the public, they do know that that's coming. And it's also, I would assume this is part of the process as to why it's agendized. And thank Commissioner Deal for asking to bring it forward as far as being a standalone plan or the plan of 1982. And so whoever's on Zoom out there and whoever's in the chambers, that's I think this is part of the process so that people understand that there's a lot of different components and a lot of different pieces that normally happen, but a lot of times, for whatever reasons, people say, well, we didn't know, we didn't see it. And that's human nature. We get too busy with real life that sometimes, that falls off the wayside. But anyways, thank you very much. And with that, unless there are any other commissioners, Then we're going to go ahead and open the public hearing to see if there's anybody in the chambers or through Zoom that would like to address the commission on this particular item. Seeing no one in the chambers coming forward, is there anybody in Zoom that would like to address the commission?
Yes, we have iPhone guest. You should be able to unmute now.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman and fellow commissioners. My name's Trey Kropp. I'm a resident of Big Sur. And thank you for taking the time to explain all this. I find it pretty confusing. It seems from my point of view that it's just very last minute in this process that the public's being informed about this. And so it's not much time to understand it and really, by looking at, for instance, the comment from MS Monterey Salinas Transit, it was kind of concerning. You don't mention that the transportation element is going to be updated for Big Sur, but their comments don't reflect the values of the Big Sur land use plan. They seem more like comments that would be for a city. So I also agree with what Commissioner Deal said, that it should be clear on the plan whether we be following the element or the LUP. That should be very clear on there. Also, are you willing to possibly do another community meeting or some kind of direct community thing for Big Sur to help clarify, especially this noise sound ordinance? I think that would be important because there's a lot of people that have different perspectives of noise down here. There's people that would like to have wedding events and other people that live in residential areas that would like to see more peace and quiet. So I appreciate everyone. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. Do we have anybody else on Zoom?
We do not, and we have no additional emails.
Thank you for that. Then we bring it back to the staff to see if there are any other questions, comments, clarifications.
At this time, staff does not have any additions. Thank you.
We bring it back to the commission for any other questions. Commissioner, comments or clarifications? Commissioner Deal?
Thank you. One comment based on the public commenter. Mr. Kopp, this particular question's been on the table and we've been investigating it since at least 2003. So I don't think it's being sprung upon the community in any meaningful way. I've been present for a number of community conversations about this very question over the past number of decades. We're just trying to get a clear read on what we're going to do at this time. So I can state that from my own experience and for what it's worth. And then I have one other comment that I just want to make, which is that this effort has benefited greatly from the efforts of Mr. Price here, and I understand that he has accepted another better position and will be leaving us, and I want to express my thanks for his work, my regret at his leaving, and my hope that the next position will be as good as this one or better. So thank you for your service, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Any other commissioners? I guess the staff has gotten, if not information, to get direction from the commission and information for those who participated through Zoom. And so with that, I don't believe we need a motion or a second or anything on this particular item. So, Madam Secretary?
I think by consensus, staff can consider the report received. We heard input and we'll incorporate that accordingly. And thank you to Commissioner Deal. She got a leap on me for wanting to, yes, inform the commission that Mr. Price has accepted another position. We're very much going to miss him. He's done an incredible job really supporting our team, really being a part of building and getting the momentum behind our advanced planning, long-range planning team. So this is his last planning commission meeting, and he loves being center of attention. So with that, we'll just extend a thanks and ask you all to, just feel free to pass your condolences to us. And Mr. Price is presenting the next item as well, so opportunity not lost yet.
Thank you very much. And moving on with the agenda, we have item number 2, and then we have REF 140023, and that's an update to the zoning maps and classifications. And with that, the staff will go ahead and make a presentation for this particular item.
Good morning, Commissioners and Chair Gonzalez. My name is Taylor Price, Senior Planner working out of class. Today we'll be presenting the ordinance for the update to the zoning maps and zoning classification project. Today, staff is requesting that the Commission adopt an ordinance amending Title 21 of the Monterey County Code to amend Chapter 21.08, Chapter 21.50, and Sections 1 through 108 of Section 21.08.060 of Title 21 of the Monterey County Code to reclassify multiple zoning districts for consistency with their 2010 County of Monterey General Plan land use designation. The adoption of the 2010 General Plan required updating zoning maps and amending Title 21 of the Monterey County Code. Housing and Community Development Planning staff began this project in 2014. Staff held multiple Planning Commission hearings and workshops between 2014 and 2015. Due to staff turnover and other projects taking priority, the project was never completed. The core of the project of updating the zoning maps remains uncompleted, while portions of the project were completed as separate projects, such as the adoption of the mixed-use zoning district, Chapter 21.17. Staff is reviving the project to complete the updates to the zoning maps and, as needed, updates to Title 21. For clarity, staff has divided the project into 2 phases. Phase 1 is before the Commission today. Phase 1 implements the 2010 County of Monterey General Plan Land Use Element Policy LU 9.1 and LU 9.8 and updates all of the county's sectional district maps. Phase 2, which will subsequently be assigned a new REF number, will include implementing the Agricultural and Winery Corridor Plan from the 2010 County of Monterey General Plan into Title 21, and implementing a new ministerial permitting process associated with the Agricultural and Winery Corridor Plan. Updates to Title 21 were included during the initial Commission workshop in 2014 and 2015. Updates to Chapter 21.08 were envisioned during the initial workshop and were intended to ensure that there is a clear way to address inconsistencies in sectional district zoning maps. The current project involves updating the zoning maps to ensure that the 2010 General Plan land use designations and zoning are consistent. Staff is proposing updates to Chapter 21.08 to ensure that future zoning district boundary updates need to occur for consistency can occur administratively, which is similar to most other jurisdictions within the state of California. Staff is also correcting 2 sections of Chapter 21.08. While not originally included in the original project scope before the Planning Commission in 2014 and 2015, staff is proposing to add clarifying language to Chapter 21.50 to ensure that board-adopted Memorandum of Agreements and Memorandum of Understandings between the county and incorporated cities are reviewed by staff when required. Staff is proposing that update to 21.50 to clarify that staff needs to review board-adopted MOA and MOUs where applicable. The next steps will be staff brings forward phase 1 to the board in summer of 2025, and staff expects to return to the Planning Commission in fall, winter of 2025 with phase 2 of the project. Today, staff is recommending that the Planning Commission find this a presentation and ordinance statutorily exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act pursuant to CEQA Guidelines Section 15262 and adopt an ordinance amending Title 21 of the Monterey County Code to amend Chapter 21.08, Chapter 21.50, and Sections 1 through 108 of Section 21.08.060 of Title 21 of the Monterey County Code to reclassify multiple zoning districts for consistency with their 2010 County of Monterey General Plan Land Use Designation. That concludes staff's presentation, and staff is available for questions.
Thank you. Bring it back to the Planning Commission for questions, comments, clarifications. So with that, Commissioner Roberts.
First, I want to thank staff for the maps and in color and the printing job that must have required. I sincerely appreciate that. But second, my question is just a clarification of anybody who owns property in these land use designations that may or may not be changing. They are not affected, as this is just solidifying what happened with the adoption of the 2010 general plan.
Through the chair, that is correct. And these are not updating the land use. It's updating the zoning districts to be consistent with the 2010 general plan land use designation.
Thank you.
Any other commissioners? Seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and open up the public hearing. Anybody here in the chambers that would like to address this particular item, you have about 3 minutes. So if you're interested, then you're welcome to come to the podium. Seeing none, do we have anybody in Zoom or on Zoom? And do we have any emails or correspondence?
We do not have any hands up on Zoom or additional emails at this time.
Thank you. So with that, then I guess I will not bring it back to staff, but I'll bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Gomez?
I want to make a motion to approve the recommendation.
Commissioner Gomez has made a motion to approve the recommendation. Do we have a second? Second by Commissioner Mendoza. And any other questions, comments, or clarifications? Commissioner Deal.
I just want to say thank goodness it's about time.
Thank you. Any other commissioners? All those in favor of the motion so indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously.
Question, would staff like these beautiful maps back? They might be good for some other presentation.
Sure. Commissioners can also keep them for light reading.
What a great idea.
And then let me see. With that, we're going to go ahead and continue with the scheduled matters, and we go to item number 3. And item number 3 is PLN 240120, Valle del Sol Properties, LLC. And so staff is going to go ahead and make a presentation on this particular item.
Thank you, Chair Gonzalez and Commissioners. Steve Mason of the Housing and Community Development Department to present Valle del Sol Properties, LLC minor subdivision. The project site at 151 acres currently is in the North County Local Coastal Plan area, zone light industrial, and is bordered on the east by Del Monte Boulevard and Lapis Road, to the west by Highway 1, and to the south by the city of Marina. Now, Now, the parcel is highlighted here in red. It is the remainder parcel from the Armstrong Sandhill Ranch subdivision. Some of you may remember this subdivision. It was approved by the Planning Commission in 2018 and the board in 2019. This subdivision produced 5 contiguous lots. 3 of these lots are in the unincorporated area of the county. Parcels 1 and 2, highlighted here in blue and yellow, at 419 and 591 acres respectively. Also, our subject 151-acre remainder parcel highlighted in red. The subdivision also created 2 lots within the city of Marina. These are parcels 3 and 4, highlighted here in green and purple, 242 and 74 acres respectively. Now, parcel 3 is the site of the City of Marina's Marina Station mixed-use subdivision project. And as I understand it, the EIR for this project spawned some litigation. I should point out the county is not involved in this litigation, but what is required ultimately is that the city and the developer mitigate by preserving and restoring Monterey spine flower habitat near the project site. I believe about 108 acres in total, which brings us back to the remainder parcel and the project before you today. If you see the parcel map on the right and compare it to the satellite photo on the left, you can see there's already a pretty clear delineation between parcel 2A. It's the darker area. On the satellite photo on the left, it's darker because it hasn't been farmed in some time. Now, this has already actually been designated under conservation easement as of last year, and this will serve to satisfy some of that mitigation requirement that came out of the Marina Station project, 83 acres specifically. The parcel on the right at 68 acres would remain in agricultural production. And the delineation between the 2 parcels is more clear from a ground level view. This is facing south. Excuse me. Parcel 1A on the left would remain in agricultural production, currently strawberries through the entire parcel, and parcel 2A on the right, the conservation easement parcel. Just to the right off camera here is Highway 1. A few items to add, one being that assuming the project were approved, the ownership of the 83-acre restoration parcel would be transferred to the Marina Station LLC and ultimately granted to a conservation agency. I understand the Big Sur Land Trust is a likely suitor. As far as ongoing mitigation, written reports on the results of compliance monitoring inspections would be provided to the City of Marina on an annual basis. And I should add that no development is proposed on either of the 2 parcels. The site hasn't been formally designated as environmentally sensitive habitat, but it has been identified as potential Monterey spine flower habitat, and the site also contains 2 vernal ponds. And in my experience, vernal ponds, upon analysis, are usually designated as environmentally sensitive habitat. 2 of the resource protection policies of the North County Land Use Plan apply to this project, one of them very specifically being that Highway 1 from Marina to the county line, the Pajaro River, should be officially designated as a state scenic highway, and the visual character of the adjacent scenic corridor should be preserved and, where feasible, restored. There's also another more generic policy stating that the county should encourage the restoration of sensitive plant habitats on public and private lands. The project was referred to the North County Land Use Advisory Committee at their March 19 meeting. The LUAC recommended approval of the project 5-0 with 2 members absent. Staff has also notified the City of Marina. This is within their sphere of influence, of course. Caltrans, as this abuts their easement on Highway 1, the Monterey County LAFCO, and the California Coastal Commission. All 4 have replied to staff indicating they have no objections or concerns. Staff would recommend that the Planning Commission find the project categorically exempt from CEQA pursuant to Section 15305, which applies to minor alterations in land use limitations, and 15325, applying to transfers of ownership in land to preserve existing natural conditions and historical resources. And staff would recommend The Planning Commission approved the coastal development permit for a minor subdivision investing tentative map to allow the division of a 151-acre parcel into two parcels containing approximately 83 and 68 acres. With that, I'm available to answer any questions.
Thank you for the presentation. And now we bring it back to the Planning Commission. Commissioners, do you have any questions, comments, clarifications? I see no hands up, so with that, we're going to go ahead and move on to the public hearing. And we have the presentation from, I guess, Mr. Lombardo, but state your name for the record, and you can go ahead and begin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Anthony Lombardo on behalf of the property owner. Planning Department did an excellent job giving the history. This property is a portion of what was known as the Armstrong Ranch, part of which was located in the city of Marina. The Armstrongs, who are the prior owners of the property, obtained approval for development of a portion of the ranch. It was in the city of Marina. The Sierra Club and a group called Save Our Peninsula, represented by my friend Richard Rosenthal, filed suit against the city in the development. That case was eventually settled many years ago, and part of the settlement was, as staff has described, the dedication of this acreage into open space. So the property was sold by the Armstrong family, purchased by my client, who is a strawberry farmer, who then resold the development portion to a developer that's in the city of Marina. And so we're just completing the conditions of approval by subdividing off the portion that's going to remain open space, undeveloped, and contains some sensitive plants and habitat. And as the staff said, there's going to deed that to a conservation organization. So unless you have any other questions, that's really it for this one. Thank you.
Any questions from the commission? There being none, then anybody else in the chambers that would like to address the Planning Commission on this particular item? Seeing none, do we have anybody on Zoom or any emails regarding this particular item?
We have no hands up on Zoom and no additional emails.
Thank you for that. So therefore, we're going to skip bringing it back to the staff and we're going to bring it back to the Planning Commission. Planning Commissioners, do you have any comments, questions? Seeing none, we need a motion and a second to go ahead either to approve or not approve this item. Commissioner Shaw makes a motion and Commissioner Mendoza makes a second. So any further questions or comments? If not, all those in favor of the motion so indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you for that presentation. And let me see what time it is. Time for break. Well, we're going to go ahead and take about a 15-minute break, and then we'll be back. Thank you. Okay, with that, we're going to go ahead and resume with the Planning Commission meeting of April 30, 2025. And following the agenda, we have item, before we start, just want to state for the record that all 10 planning commissioners that were here are still here and are present. And with that, we go on to item number 4, PLN 240077, Signal Hill LLC. So with that, the staff will be making a presentation on this particular item. Staff?
Good morning, Chair Gonzalez and members of the dais and planning commissioners. My name is Mary Israel. I'm presenting this project, a design approval and a related permit that is the final step of a previously reviewed project, PLN 100338, Signal Hill. The project is located at 1170 Signal Hill Road in Pebble Beach in the area regulated by the Del Monte Forest Land Use Plan. The 2.2-acre parcel is zoned low-density residential, 1.5 acres per unit with design control overlay, and it's in the coastal zone. The project included significant impacts to a listed historic resource, so an EIR was prepared. An alternative for the proposed project, Alternative 9, which was a reduced height project, was approved by the Planning Commission in January 25, 2023. The decision had 3 separate appeals. One was from a neighbor, Mr. Reeves, represented by Lombardo and Associates. The next was the Alliance of Monterey Area Preservationists. And the third was Raymond Neutra, son of the architect of the Connell House, Richard Neutra. The appeals were discussed by the Board of Supervisors on May 9th, and the appellants, the applicant, and staff added testimony. The public also commented on the appeal hearing, and the hearing was continued to June 27th, 2023, with a motion of intent to uphold the 3 appeals and with board direction for the applicant to work on the preservation and reduced project alternatives, and those were Alternative 1 and Alternative 6 instead. The board approved 2 resolutions on June 27, 2023. The first certified the EIR, which would be required for action on whatever alternative that the board selected. The EIR was prepared following California Environmental Equality Act, or CEQA requirements, establishing a baseline, project objectives, setting a firm project description, and analyzing a suite of alternatives. The EIR found impacts to aesthetics, archaeological resources, air quality, greenhouse gases, biological resources, geology, seismicity and soils, hazards and hazardous materials, historic resources, obviously, hydrology and water quality, and noise. It found that potential impacts could result from for all of these areas from the proposed full-sized project of the EIR, and most impacts would be mitigated to less than significant level with incorporation of mitigation measures from the EIR. And the mitigation measures were slightly different for different project alternatives. Potentially significant impact that the EIR found could not be mitigated to a level of less than significant was the impact to historical resources. And that is because the proposed dwelling for demolition was the state and federally listed Connell House by Richard Neutra, as mentioned. The board heard testimony from the appellants and on supporting the preservation alternative. The board heard testimony from the applicant, who did not wish the board to select the preservation alternative for the following reasons: property rights and the argument that reconstruction is infeasible. The record showed that the Historic Resources Review Board did not support the preservation alternative at their May 2022 second review of the project, and the chair called it, quote, building a replica. The board upheld the appeals of the Planning Commission's decision in their second resolution. Their second resolution came forward, although the board stated that several members of the board would have preferred to go with the preservation alternative, but they said that it, quote, had been demolished by neglect, unquote, so they didn't choose that, and instead they approved Alternative 6, the reduced project alternative. The resolution included a coastal administrative permit to demolish the existing dwelling with a statement of overriding considerations in the EIR, and also a coastal administrative permit to construct a new dwelling which would stay within the existing development. As there were no reduced project plans to review at the time, the board approved the project in concept as part of their resolution. That resolution also included coastal development permits for development within 100 feet of ESHA, sand dune, development on slopes, and development within 750 feet of known archaeological resources. As will be discussed in a few slides, the board also included the motion in the motion of approval that, quote, stipulation that the construction of Alternative 6 is in the footprint of the Connell House as it was. Since then, the Connell House has been demolished, and the permit holder has been timely and complete with the condition compliance and mitigation measures thus far. The owner has brought forward the plans as demonstrated in the attachment to the draft resolution. Staff has carefully reviewed the design and found that the project is within the scope of the EIR's description of a reduced project. Today, the Planning Commission is asked to consider the proposed design approval and the proposed cypress tree relocations that would enable this project's construction. The PLN 240077 design consists of a two-story, 8,290 square foot single-family dwelling with 693 square feet of terrace and 180 square feet stairwell, resulting total building site coverage of 5.2%. Floor area ratio is 8.8%. That's because this is a large lot. It's a 2.2 acre lot. The Connell House was non-conforming as to Title 20's required setback. On the front setback, it actually sat a few feet into what we today have as the front setback. In the board's decision to support in concept the construction of Alternative 6, they did specify for it to stay within the Connell House footprint, but they did not specify that the development footprint should be shifted out of that front setback. Therefore, the design is still slightly within the front setback and meets all other setbacks. The area shown on this slide of the site plan that is pale green is the construction protection area that was set up by a project biologist for demolition. And that area, everything within it will need to be fully restored after development. Per the PLN 100338 resolutions for all but design approval before you, 1.67 acres of the property has been required to be natural restoration area. The remainder that is close to the house is required to be landscaped with natural native landscaping materials and plants. The site is in a design control zoning district. So the purpose, as a refresher, of the design control zoning district is to provide a district that regulates location, size, configuration, materials, and colors of structures and fences in those areas of the county where design review of structures is appropriate to assure protection of the public viewshed, neighborhood character, and the visual integrity of certain developments without imposing undue restrictions on private property. This slide shows the west elevation of the proposed dwelling, which would be in the direction of 17 Mile Drive and Fanshell Beach. The maximum height of the project is 25.5 from average natural grade. This slide shows the east elevation of the proposed dwelling facing Signal Hill Road. The dwelling will have the appearance of a single story from this side. The current slide shows the north and south elevations for the dwelling on the right. On the left, colors and materials consisting of light brown stucco exterior, black metal clad wood accents, and a gravel roof are suggested. The project is in an area where there are several large custom-built homes visible among the sand dunes off 17 Mile Drive. Within the Signal Hill Road enclave, the size of residential structures ranges from 4,534 square feet to 8,106 square feet with a mean floor area of 6,716 square feet. The proposed two-story, 8,290 square foot single-family dwelling is larger than other residences in the area. This slide shows the staking and flagging as it is currently on the site in a photograph taken by staff from the corner of the subject parcel along 17 Mile Drive. I'm sorry, it was overcast. So since you can't see it, I'm going to click so that you can see the area that was staked and flagged. On the right, a photograph taken by staff from the same side of 17 Mile Drive within Fanshell Beach Curve looks to the north and at other development in the immediate area. This 3D rendering was made to show the view of the proposed dwelling from Fanshell Beach at road level. From this and all angles, there is no ridgeline effect. The inclusion of this development will change the character of the neighborhood by adding a new notable architectural firm with a moderately prominent front facade to an area built with custom eclectic homes. However, in staff's opinion, these changes in character will not be significant because the proposed project avoids building height that extends above the tree canopy ridge behind it, and as mitigated by the measures identified in the EIR, certified EIR, for aesthetics, the project will not significantly impact the view shed. Mitigations for aesthetics include AES MM 3.1, an exterior lighting plan, which is condition 9 of PLN 100338, and Bio-Mitigation Measure 2.1 and Bio-Mitigation Measure 3.2, which result combined in the restoration of a 1.67 acre area of the property to native sand dune habitat. Board's direction that the replacement residence be within the footprint of the Connell House as it was stated after reviewing a PowerPoint slide with graphical representation of the Connell House perimeter under a sketch of a proposed alternative project. In the graphical representation, the structural footprint, overhangs, and upper-level deck were included, and that representation can be understood to have directly informed the board's direction. The same outline was utilized for project compliance review. The building footprint of the Connell House is now shown in gray. As proposed, the replacement residence is within the previous footprint, and that is structural footprint, roof overhangs, and upper-level deck. The proposed structure does not mimic the U-shape of the Connell House and instead proposes to fill in the remainder of the former courtyard, which is now shown as the blue area labeled A. Staff found that the infill of the area would be reasonable and notes that areas within the development footprint of the Connell House are not proposed to be developed. The areas are a rough trade of building footprint. As shown, this is now B, an area that would not be developed by the proposed dwelling. Staff recommends the Planning Commission find this reduces the bulk and mass that could be in the public view shed and also allows more sand dune area. The proposed building footprint is now shown in textured brown. So this is our building footprint for the project before you for decision. The proposed driveway is now shown in a textured gray, and the proposed second floor deck made of impervious materials is now shown in beige. The applicant proposes a second floor decking to continue to the southern edge of the house as shown in pale green and calls that decking. Condition number 8 was drafted by staff in time for the agenda packet to go out with the understanding that that area would be impervious coverage, which would add both new overhang not previously included to the Connell House's overhang and add intense shading to areas that are supposed to be landscaped, which are required by the EIR to be native sand dune plants. The applicant yesterday requested that the light green decking area be allowed as pervious decking, and that condition number 8, which restricts that decking from being built as it's currently drafted, they requested that that be changed to describe that pervious decking would be allowed and sand dune species that are shade tolerant be planted below it. So this is before the Planning Commission for consideration, and staff has prepared some draft red line if you'd like to look at it. Staff find it could be supported if there is sand dune native landscaping below, and definitely not hardscape. Direction from the board required the new single-family dwelling to stay within the Connell House footprint. So now we're looking at a slide about measurements. Staff finds that this is effectively achieved by the proposed design. In the submittal, Whitson Engineering measured the Connell House as 4,630 square feet. And then indoor-outdoor living areas, which I'm now pointing to, included part of the kitchen on an internal patio and areas where the outdoor cement slab integrated with indoor spaces on the first level. So it makes sense for these to be included as well, and that's another 911 square feet for a total building footprint of 5,540. The proposed structure would have a 4,677 square foot building first floor footprint, And then upper floor deck and stairwell add another 952 square feet for a total building footprint of 5,629. The reason I add in the upper deck in this case is because we were already counting overhangs of roof and decking in the idea of the Connell House footprint, so it seemed only fair that we do apples and apples. Staff, that said, staff finds the project is in general conformance with the board direction. Although tree removals had originally been considered for the full-size project in the EIR, when it was reduced to the reduced project, the coastal development permit for tree removals was taken out because we couldn't anticipate without a plan set if any trees would be required to be removed. And considering the history of the site, we didn't want to give some extra removals that wouldn't be necessary. So in this design approval, it is, as proposed, would require 2 cypress trees to be moved to allow for construction of the driveway. And this photo is showing those 2 plus 1 that's not going to be moved. So let me bring up the tree relocation and protection plan from the application. The trees are marked here as T4 and T5. And I'm pointing at them right now. They're the 22-inch DBH and 16-inch DBH trees, and they would be moved just slightly north as shown with this brighter blue arrow. Another small cypress tree is proposed to be relocated to allow for construction. It's within the construction impact area, and it would be moved just slightly southwest as shown with this brighter arrow. And that's tree T12 on this image. All 3 trees would be relocated to very close by. They can be found to be the minimum required, and survivorship is required to be monitored by a condition of approval that's on this permit. This slide introduces 2 applicant requests for small changes to the design, which staff did not find could be supported when we first reviewed them, and staff still finds that the one on the right could not be supported, while strictly following the direction of the board. So on the right, on the left, we can see adding new coverage. The applicant prefers to add approximately 50 square feet of development on the northeast corner, and that would be outside of the previous development footprint and onto an area that could be restored to sand dune quality landscaped area. And I've already described the request for the right side after some very recent discussion just yesterday. The approximate 300 square feet of development to the southwest on the second floor terrace is outside of the previous building footprint. Mitigation measures include completely native sand dune landscaping near the house, and I had the question of blocked sun, but now instead perhaps pervious decking and shade-tolerant sand dune plants could be found acceptable. And the request was based on, as will be explained by the applicant, is based on the idea that this Lagaretta structure needs the second floor terrace to go all the way to the end to have its integrity as an architectural piece. So, of course, you're going to need to see a little bit more information than that verbal description. So here is the corner of the house. This photo was consulted when staff found the footprint of the proposed dwelling could extend into the area of the landing, as shown, but not the dune area. So here's the landing area that, if you see this black line, it's proposed to be included in the footprint of the proposed dwelling, and staff found that that is in general conformance because, as you can see, it's hardscape, and there's it's effectively the building footprint of the Connell House. However, staff felt that the dune area next to it was a step beyond the board's direction, and the applicant agreed to remove a corner of the proposed dwelling for this set of plans coming before you. We're still looking at this picture because the applicant requests the Planning Commission consider including that corner. And they provided this illustration to show how an area which was the Connell House building footprint a little further to the south and is approximately 75 square feet is not proposed to be built over now. So that would be effectively a swap, the way that the internal courtyard would be a swap for the outer area. Also shown in this illustration is the applicant's proposal to add more deck to complete the architectural vision, but to compromise and install pervious decking. So the area that had been green, it now shows that it would only have a pervious deck at the second floor level and no hardscape below. Should the commission find these supportable, staff can update condition number 8. A comment letter came in prior to the hearing. It was from a representative of a neighbor opposing the project at the proposed size, and also attached previous correspondence to the Board of Supervisors detailing their reasons as to why the board should not have approved the applicant's original and then the alternative 9 reduced project proposal. As discussed in a previous slide, staff found the proposed project meets the requirements of alternative 6, which the board approved, and can be found consistent with the board's stipulation that the construction of alternative 6 is within the footprint of the Connell House as it was. CEQA was done on the project with an EIR. The design approval of PLN 240077 is within the scope of alternative 6 reduced project. The EIR defined the reduced project as shown on the left of this screen. The project complies with this in every way. Also, as itemized in the staff report, the site coverage is less, impervious surface is less, height is less, and bulk and mass is less than the proposed project of the EIR when this design is compared to it. Therefore, with all of this information, staff recommends that the Planning Commission consider the previous certified final environmental impact report for Signal Hill project, and that the proposed project is consistent with alternative 6 of that FEIR and does not warrant an addendum pursuant to the guidelines. And staff recommends approval of this design approval for construction of approximately 8,290 square foot, 2-story single-family dwelling, inclusive of a 3-car garage, with the colors and materials, light brown stucco body, black metal-clad wood accents, and gravel roof, and associated improvements, and approve a coastal development permit to allow the relocation of 3 cypress trees. This approval would be subject to the 3 tree relocations related conditions of approval, a construction management plan condition, and special planning condition approval about additional development around the structures. So this concludes staff's presentation. Thank you for your patience. I hope it was helpful, and I'm available to give any more additional information. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation, and now bringing it back to the Planning Commission. Planning Commissioners, do we have any questions, comments, concerns? Commissioner Roberts?
So having been one of the commissioners that was probably here the first time we heard this on the original tree removal, I'm curious to know if you will, I was wondering if the tree 12 is one of the planted trees that was part of the, it is.
Through the chair, yes, tree 12 was one of the planted trees from the restoration permit that came far before.
And then to follow up on that, my experience in visiting that site in 2023 was that was one of the only trees that was actually surviving at the time. Is that true?
Staff site visits confirmed many of the cypress trees were doing well, but of the ones that had been replanted for the restoration plan, there was another one that had failed. A condition of approval was added to PLN 100338 that required a 48-inch tree be planted to replace the one that failed in the prior restoration permit. I didn't bring that up because I didn't want to convolute this too much more, but it is a fact that there is a condition of approval on this property to replace that tree.
Okay, thank you.
Any other commissioners? Commissioner Deal?
Thank you. Following up on that, I think the absence of incorporating the discussion about the tree replacement requirements is confusing, because for those who may not have been here for the prior rounds, this has been several times here before us. Many of us remember it, but maybe not all. The first one was for illegal tree removal, and we heard that separately from the development proposal and required the replacement of trees for trees that had been removed near the house that had the effect of buffering the view of the site from the 17-mile drive. In none of these renderings or descriptions do I see anything remotely related to any trees that would buffer the impact of that view from the 17-mile drive. I can't say that I remember all the details of the tree replacements, but I think I do remember the overall philosophy, which was that if you go and cut down large trees because you think they're going to be in your way without the proper process, you should not subsequently benefit from having done that. I mean, that's kind of my take on it. It may be not written down. But so I would like to see what the Connell House looked like with the original trees compared to what this proposed project looks like with the replacement trees, and a description of what replacement trees were required that are not currently in place and what will be done about those. So I know it's a really complicated question, but it's all related to how that structure would appear from the major public viewing area, which in my mind is the 17-mile drive, and people pay money to actually look at that. So that's one question, and I'll just leave it there because I know it's more complicated than can be answered immediately. My second question is about the definition of ridgeline impacts, and just remind me whether in Pebble Beach the ridgeline is defined as the land or the trees, if the vegetation cover is part of the ridgeline or not. I just don't remember.
Through the chair, as it was considered by the board in the hearing for PLN 100338, this was reviewed for the potential to have a silhouette against the sky and not be integrated within the canopy of the trees behind.
And I asked that question because, as we all know, we have wildfires and trees go away. And so I think that's an important point to keep in mind, that trees are not permanent, and we see that all over this project. My third question is, can anybody name visualize a sand dune, and then visualize a sand dune plant that's okay with shade? Can anybody name one? Because I can't imagine that such a thing is real. So I would like to have some more specifics about that proposal if anybody chooses to follow up on it. My last question is, as I recall previous proposals, there's always been a conservation easement protecting the restoration project. Is there anything of that sort incorporated? And I thought it was in the EIR that it would be there. Is there anything in this particular project that incorporates that provision?
Okay, through the chair, there is a condition of approval that was on the PLN 100338 project, and it was approved to be required to be within the building footprint of the Connell House. There still was a conservation scenic easement deed required, but it was reduced to approximately twice the impact area rather than over the entire area. And staff did have a conversation with Coastal Commission about this recently, where they expressed that they would like to see the conservation scenic easement deed over the whole rest of the area. So there is potential for that to be expanded by this body.
So I'm still confused. There is already existent a conservation and scenic easement deed over part of the property?
Excuse me, to clarify through the chair, there is a condition of approval to have one in place, and it goes concurrently with the restoration plan that has not been started yet.
Fundamentally, so the conditions of approval we see related to this project are not a whole slate of conditions of approval that relate to this property. Is that correct? Can we have some kind of summary document that shows us what else is going to be related? Because without that, I'm a little bit in the dark.
Through the chair, certainly we could circulate the mitigation monitoring and reporting plan agreement that was signed by the applicant and the county in 2023. Or 20, yeah. But I don't know if that would
do they
timely
have
within this.
I'm sorry. Do they have to be incorporated by reference in the resolution that says those are part of the project? I didn't see that, but maybe I missed it.
There was a discussion of that in the resolution, but it was anticipated by staff that this might be a request as an additional condition of approval. So we drafted a conditional approval number 9 as a general conformance with conditions of approval for PLN 100338, which would specifically describe per condition 43 of PLN 100338, a mitigation monitoring reporting plan agreement was prepared by staff county council, signed and notarized, recorded by the applicant as county document number, and then says this condition of approval memorializes that the mitigation monitoring and reporting plan approved through those resolutions will continue as formalized in the agreement, and this project and its conditions of approval are added and in general conformance with them, so that it would point back to that agreement as well.
Thank you. I appreciate
both are active permits on the site.
If that's the case, I think it's important to say so, and I'm also very uncomfortable with the word general in there. I would like for it to be in conformance, so from my own personal point of view, so that we know what we're approving. And then that's the end of the questions. My final is a statement, which is that at no time in my experience on this board have we considered the execution of a vision of an architect as a priority compared to the rules. If we had only approved houses that I like, there would be fewer houses. There's been a lot of houses that conform to all of our rules that I personally didn't care for. There have been architects that brought forward their vision and then subsequently revised it to fit the rules of the area in which they are located. I've said it before, I say it frequently, we have great architects around here, and the starting premise, from my view, for an architect should be the rules and restrictions of the area in which the building is to be located, and not vice versa. So for me personally, no argument about the vision of the architect, which requires a relaxation of the rules of engagement, is an appropriate or convincing argument. Thank you.
Thank you. Other commissioners? Commissioner Shaw?
Thank you. So there's a few things. One, I'm having trouble with this, what's presented, because it's kind of piecemeal, and I'm hearing things that are different in the presentation that I'm seeing in my packet and haven't really been able to review. I did have a question, though. Who determined that 8,290 square feet is similar in size to 4,124 square feet? That just seems like a big jump. And I was wondering who or when that determination was made, which leads me really quickly to the photo showing the bulk and mass of the house from Fanshell Beach. To me, was a little misleading. Like Commissioner Deal, I would like to see something from Highway 17. If you look at the picture, the car's really small. And so if we had something from Highway 17 Mile Drive, looking up at what that building looks like, and ideally with what the trees would look like, because there's nothing in front of it. Are there supposed to be trees in front of that house?
Okay, through the chair, there is a condition of approval on the PLN 100338 project that I can share with you. It's Monterey cypress tree replacement and protection. The owner applicant shall cause a 48-inch box cypress tree to be planted in a location that will provide screening of the new development when viewed from Fanshell Beach and 17 Mile Drive. The tree shall replace the large Monterey cypress tree, which was previously removed from the property and was not successfully replanted in the after-effect planning permit PLN 100418, resolution number 13021, to clear the code violation for tree removal. So with that, staff recognizes that it's not shown in the 3D rendering that came from the application packet. It's also not common for them to always put in the anticipated landscaping around the house. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But when we look at that image, we should be imagining at least one tree in front of it.
Through the chair, I guess maybe in the future, I would, maybe for the applicant's sake, it would be beneficial with a house that is so much larger than what the board has in their resolution, the board direction to build a residence of similar size, and they're building something over, twice the size, visualizing it with trees, screening it from that view, making it look less like a big box, would probably be beneficial to them. Again, though, can we go back, and I'm just really curious who determined that that square footage was similar to what the board directed?
So through the chair, the 4,000 measure was an estimate done by staff when we did not have access to the Connell House plans, and that was in the preparation of the final environmental impact report. So you could see it's an underline addition, and then was also carried forward in the PLN 100338 resolution. But even at that time, it could have easily been disputed because that was an estimate of floor area.
Through the chair. So we have no idea how big the previous house was at all. We don't know the square footage. So we don't have a factual baseline to back up what the board of directors directed.
Through the chair, the board of directors said that it would have to stay within the building footprint. They did not specify square footage of the house. So in this presentation, if I had the slide up, I would be showing how it is basically within the building footprint. However, the EIR did say, let me get to that. The EIR for alternative 6 said it would completely demolish Connell House, but would reduce the size of the proposed single-family dwelling to stay within the developed footprint. So both of those were framed within a measurement of the footprint of the house rather than the square footage.
Thank you. Through the chair. So I'm wondering if I guess it sounds like I should disregard the Board of Supervisors resolution 4B, where it says coastal administrative permit for the construction of a new single-family residence of similar size and concept as the existing residence.
I don't know what to say. Similar footprint size. I guess if we went back and fixed it, it would say similar footprint size.
Through the chairs, that wording is not what the Board of Supervisors voted on, right? They voted on the residence of similar size. But we don't know what the similar size is because we don't have the square footage.
So through the chair, staff requested the plans from Raymond Neutra to review and was told we'd have to buy them from a library in Southern California, and started to investigate that, but didn't really have a source of funding to pay for the plan set. And it was considered, but we just said, well, we have the record as it stands and the direction of the board to stay within the building footprint. So we thought that would be effective, but if the Planning Commission wishes, we could move ahead and get those plans and get more specific numbers.
Thank you.
Other commissioners? Commissioner Hartzell?
Could you go back to your slide with the building footprint?
Dave, would you please share the slide presentation again? Thank you.
I would love to see the one, well, this one will work.
Do you want to go back to the...
I want to keep going.
Okay.
This one. Could you show me the original building footprint and then overlay with the current proposed? Original building, overlay.
So the original building footprint is the gray area.
Okay.
Through the chair.
And this black box on the top.
Hold on. Go back.
Got it. So when I think of a footprint. I was out at the site. I stepped in the sand, looked at my footprint. I think of exactly the outline of what a footprint is. I asked council earlier today. There's no definition of what a footprint is anywhere in code, so I'm using plain language here. I think of the outline of what I would have left in the sand. And so I'm disinclined to interpret footprint as being something that can be swapped, like taking off a toe of one footprint and putting it somewhere else. I might be wrong about that, but just noting that anything outside of this footprint will impact the sand around it, which is what's being preserved by ESHA. And just wondering if there's anything I should know about that regarding footprint or regarding swapping footprint or, okay. Then I guess my other question is for council about Commissioner Shaw's comment. So what about the 4B directive suggesting similar in size? Can we go with alternative 6, which is proposed to be quite a bit larger, even though it says, will this affect us in any way if we approved this? Similar in size.
Through the chair. The approval was of the reduced project alternative from the final EIR, that's correct. I think some of this is up to interpretation of the Planning Commission as to what's similar or what's within the footprint. Sorry, did you have a specific question? I don't want to miss it.
So what was in the final EIR was, and as noted as alternative 6, could have been several different sizes, but they note it here in number 4.
I see.
But they also note the square footage of the original building, followed by a directive, an approval of a new single-family residence of similar size. If we were to approve the project as proposed here today, would we run into any issue because of 4B?
First, I'll just say that my memory of the reduced project alternative is there were no plans for it. It was kind of a sparse description of what it might be, conceptual. And so is this at the point that the board approved the project. So I'm afraid there's not a lot of direction here on this question, but certainly you could read it the way that you're suggesting. But I mean, it says a similar size in concept, so it's a bit ambiguous in that way as well. Sorry, I'm not being super helpful. There's not a ton of direction on the specifics, which is the point of the design review process to get there. I also believe that this would be subject to appeal if someone wanted to take it and it were approved to the board, which could then come in and say, no, this isn't what we meant. So this wouldn't be the end of the process if there were concerns.
Thanks.
If staff may, we did just want to make sure that it is clear for the record that while the resolution reads with a bit ambiguity, staff did go back, listen to the recording, and the board's action and direction stated very clearly footprint. So we recognize the ambiguity in the resolution and the question, but did just want to be clear on the record that from the recording of the board direction, it was footprint.
And further, through the chair, 2020 hindsight, staff would have gone to update the resolution and how it was described to describe it as building footprint rather than similar size. But that's not what we did. And furthermore, for the clarification for your most recent question about swapping, staff found that swapping the area A for area B was particularly appropriate because it better met the goals and policies of the land use plan for particular in terms of visual resources and also impacts to ESHA. So if you leave this area B in the development, then the development is even further into what would be considered restorable dune habitat and also part of the view shed from Fan Shell Beach and Highway in 17 Mile Drive, whereas Area A only has a view from Signal Hill Road, and there's not much traffic up there because it's a dead end, just one house after this one. And then also, it's already compromised through the way that it's an internal courtyard. It's not as valuable habitat-wise.
But through the chair? But the corner bathroom and the potentially impervious decking, those are additions or overhangs on the footprint, yeah?
Through the chair, they are, and that's why staff was very firm and required a resubmittal, or else we would recommend denial. If it came
Understood.
forward
Thank you.
with us.
Commissioner Shaw?
Thank you. I just want to clarify, though, when we're talking about like A and B and swapping, we don't have to swap anything. We can just remove something and say you can't do it at all. So I just wanted to clarify that, and I see you nodding, so thank you. I also wanted to clarify, so we had, I brought up this thing and we kind of got in the weeds here about 4B, but if we go to the resolution and we go to, what is it? L, design, they're in a design control district. So if we were ready to vote on this today, if we had a complete packet that had all the information for me to review, we could say, this is completely outsized for the neighborhood. This is 2,000 plus square feet larger than the largest home in this area. And that's within our ability to then control the size of this, right?
Through the chair, since this is a design approval before the Planning Commission, they can approve or deny. They could make a motion for us to bring back a resolution for denial, or remand staff to go back and work with the applicant to come up with a better design that better meets the requirements of the board's direction. And just last clarification on the U shape. Staff also looked at how the Connell House was a very unusual shape with a U shape, and taking to mind the property rights of individuals in this country to demand that they build a U-shaped house structure, that would also put some liability risk on county.
Commissioner Mendoza?
Thank you. I agree with you. I think as long as the homes are similar in size, which it seems to be, and it's in the same footprint that the supervisor suggested it's in, I don't see a problem. And basically, in that area, every single home out there, for the most part, is a custom home, so they're all going to look a little bit different. At that point, it's just personal opinion what one person might like versus another. Thank you.
Commissioner Deal?
Yeah, I'm back to wanting us to, this has been such a long and convoluted process, and I would start by saying that projects that fall within the design standards normally don't take this long. The reason it's taking this long is because we're pushing the edges at every minute. We had the difficulty with tree removal, and every time we come up with something, we're having to make some sort of qualifier to make it fit. So it's kind of like Cinderella's sisters. You're cutting off the toes to fit the foot in the shoe. But going back to what the supervisors said, and I'm reading the resolution, and on 1M, I believe it says that we're talking about the setbacks because obviously we don't want to move the development into additional habitat in order to save the setback that would have been there had the house been conforming. But in that same M, in the development standards, it talks about the setbacks, and then it says the reduced project would not expand into the setbacks, and the word there is expand, so I'm assuming that means they wanted it to stay. And then it says project maximum height is anticipated to be approximately 22 feet from average natural grade. So the vision that I see cast there is for a smaller structure than the one we have before us under the loose guidelines provided by Alternative 6. And that gets back to what I originally said, is that I need to see all the pieces of this project before I could say I could feel comfortable voting yes or no. And that would include all of the additional provisions and restrictions and mitigation and monitoring actions that would be related to the complete picture about what the development of this property would look like before I could talk about any switches for any small parts of it or anything else, because I'm afraid we're going to lose the forest by looking at the individual veins on the leaves on the trees.
Any other commissioners? I do have a question, and I believe you mentioned it earlier. What was the smallest size home and largest size home in that particular area? I think you mentioned 4,000 plus.
The staff measured the houses through going through the assessor's records, and the smallest one in the assessor's records was 4,534 square feet within the Signal Hill Road enclave.
And the largest?
The largest on record was the 8,106 square foot one. And that one also had a 1,200 square foot caretaker unit, but wasn't included in that measure.
Thank you. So then I'm assuming that by that information that this particular house, as far as similar size, would fit the similar size footprint and similar size square footage based on the house that had over 8,100 square feet, more or less. Is that correct?
Within the consideration of neighborhood character and similar size to the neighborhood, that is correct.
Thank you. With that, I'm going to open the public hearing, and if with the owner or representative, if that person or individual is present, this would be time to come and make your presentation. Please state your name for the record. Thank you.
Sure. My name is, sorry, Massey Medapur. I'm the owner of the property and the applicant. I bought this property 21 years ago, a couple of decades ago. Some of the faces are familiar. They've been with me throughout 2 decades of permit process. Some of you are new, so I may have to go to a little bit of a history, but that won't take too long. You know, I'm 21 years older than I was when I bought this property, and my children were not even married. You know, my son, Satish, got married, and he has 4 children. And my grandson, the oldest one, is 19 years old. The permitting process started in 2009. I went through 3 separate permit application, PLN. The first one, second one, and third one. Throughout the history of this project, I've been discriminated, and my property right has been ignored. How do you justify for somebody like me to have a property for 21 years and not use it and pay tax? I complied with every requirements that were put in front of me. I've been unjustly selected to be attacked. This is all there is to it. I'll go through some details to see how hardship we had to go through. I went through, and my architect passed away. My lawyer for SECA passed away. My second lawyer retired. My arborist passed away. My second arborist just retired. My biologist retired. I mean, I can go on and on and on. I hired close to 100 different consultant and attorneys and experts. And at the end of it, my son and I said, let's just do it ourselves. And he has legal background. I have business background. I build in so many counties in California. It takes me a couple of months to get permit. You don't need lawyers to get permit. You need architects and engineer. And I'm an engineer. So it's beyond me that after all of these years, we're still talking about a tree. I will do whatever you want me to do for the tree, Martha. I will put it in the front. It's on our proposal, 48-inch box. I planted 3 times. One of them survived, one of them failed. My arborist told you the land in the front is not suitable for trees. But you said, do it, and I did it. Trust me, I will do anything you want me to do, but please let me build a house, a house. I don't care at this point what the architecture is. I brought late Lagoretta to design it, and then we went through redesign. Look at this photo. You talk about being massive. When we talk about size, I'm an engineer, I develop project, I develop massive architecture in Atherton that the town was celebrating me for bringing that architecture. I'm not even there. Look at this. I try to make sure that when we say size, let's make no mistake, is the massing, not square footage. Why? Because this project is stacked on top of each other. And then on top of it is in the hill. The view that you see is from Signal Hill Road. This is the view you see. The other view is way far, miles away from 17 Miles Drive. I wouldn't even show that view, okay? The basement, we have a basement and first floor. Half of the basement doesn't have daylight, which means that you don't see it. And it's unfair to say this design is 8,000 square feet. It's not. It's basically roughly 6,000 square feet. Okay, and next slide. Okay, so take a look at this. This is the unfairness. 1170 Signal Hill is the project we're talking on the first column. The second column is a new construction underway on my street. And the lot is 57,000. And the building footprint, you see, one of the things you have to make sure that the building footprint is the issue for my project because the way it's stacked. So 3141 17 Mile Drive, you have seen it, is under construction. It's a beautiful project. I love it, I support it. The point of it is that if that project is 8,106 square feet of FAR, you see every square foot of it from every direction. If my project is 8,290, you don't see it. You only see around 6,000 or 5,000 of it. And there is no massing. You have to look at, I'm in the basement. Half of the first floor is buried in the hill. And I stacked it versus other project, they spread it out. So the footprint of that project is 6,900. The footprint of my building is 4,600. And look at the difference. So, and then my neighbor next door, Sam Reeves, which he did a ton of remodel, which I don't have any objection to it. It's his business, it's his property. Based on the county record, his building footprint is 6,564. Of course, he has some trees that you can't see it. So, okay, you want me to put trees? I put trees, if that's the issue. Which I don't understand. I want to understand what is the issue. The Board of Supervisors had a long discussion. There was no design attached to Alternative 6 because nobody would have thought somebody would pick Alternative 6 and say, approve this. That was the appellant. That was their desire to attack to screw me up, basically. So the alternative 6 said within footprint, never talked FAR. FAR is never in the question. I took it upon myself to work with my architect. We worked diligently, day and night, to reduce the massing, to reduce the size.
Excuse me for a moment. Can you wrap it up in the next 2 minutes?
Well, I can't wrap up 21 years in 2 minutes.
I understand, but you had
I
already
appreciate
more than
that.
7. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So anyway, as I said, I'm not getting younger. I don't have how much time, life left in me. I need to build this. How long can I go with this? There's only one neighbor constantly opposing. I wouldn't have gone to a Board of Supervisors if the neighbor didn't oppose. So you approved a project which was twice as big. Just think about this one. The previous project was 8,000 square feet footprint, and we brought it down to 4,000 square feet of footprint. The previous project was 12,000 FAR. We brought from 12,000 to 8,000 and stacked them on top of this 4,000. I think this is brilliant work of an architect to be able to get this thing done with all the restrictions that was given to us. And when I demoed the house, I got a call from assessor office. The county assessor called me, said, congratulations, you got your house demolished. I mean, how many people get a call from assessor to say that congratulations? He felt sorry for me. He said, you've been going through hell, and I want to reduce your tax bill because the structure's gone. But I'll come after you when the building is built. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, we'll go ahead and continue with the public hearing for anybody that's in the chambers that would like to address the commission. Well, to go ahead and do so now.
Thank you. Wait a sec. So she gets my PowerPoint up.
Dave, excuse me.
Anthony Lombardo.
Dave, you can share the slideshow now.
Sorry. Oh. Okay, there we go. So, Anthony Lombardo, I represent the neighbor who's had to live with this for all these years. Answer to some of the commissioners' questions. This property is right on 17 Mile Drive, as you can see from the photos taken both by HCD of the historic house, which was on the National Register, the State Register, and the local register that was intentionally destroyed. You can see the proposal now. Next slide, please. There's no question what the board did. The maker of the motion said it would be in the footprint. Mr. Gerard said of the existing building, and Mr. Spencer Clare agreed. Next slide, please. Coastal Commission said they have to put a conservation easement around the entire house. Next slide. This is what they showed you earlier. The conservation easement doesn't even come near the house. Next slide. This is a Coastal Commission imposed condition which goes around the footprint of the house next door or down the block. Next slide, please. The trees were to be considered replacement only. A coastal development permit was issued. They're protected trees. Guess what? Those trees aren't there. What happened to them? I don't know. There were landmark Monterey cypress trees in front of the Connell house, and now they won't grow. There's a violation there. The trees are supposed to be there, but from 2013, they're not. Next slide, please. This is what the applicant showed the Board of Supervisors in 2013. There on the left is the applicant's photo of the house with the trees removed and the new trees planted. They represented to the board in 5 years that would screen completely the view of the home, and this is what they're telling us it's going to look like today. What happened to the picture of the trees screening the home? I guess it wasn't convenient for the design that the architect wanted. Next, please. Staff says it's reasonable to presume that the Board of Supervisors intended to allow the house to be expanded. It's not the way I read the resolution. And by the way, the 4,125 square footage was not a guess or an estimate. The EIR contains specific explanation of each element of the house and its size. Next, please. This is the area that the staff is saying should be considered within the footprint of the existing home. It's a patio and it's a dune covered by a fence on the street side. That wasn't the footprint of the existing home, and it isn't now, and it isn't what the board approved. Next, please. The staff seems to acknowledge that because in the staff report it says the majority of the home is located within the footprint. That's not what the board decided. Next, please. You need a variance to build in the front yard setback. None has been applied for. Next, please. And the findings aren't made. So this project, in closing, Mr. Chair and members of the commission, this project is not what the Board of Supervisors approved. The applicant has refused to comply with the board's direction, beginning with the replacement of the illegally removed trees. And the board would not have approved the demolition of that house had it not been so severe and been threatened with litigation. But the one thing they didn't want was the applicant to profit from that illegal demolition. And that's why they said, if you demolish this house, but the historic house, but you have to build the house back the exact same size and the exact same location. Otherwise, you're profiting from your illegal conduct. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, thank you.
Good morning. My name is Denise Estrada. I'm board member of Alliance of Monterey Area Preservationists. I'm among many California and Monterey, California residents who believe we have the responsibility to protect our diminishing historic landmark properties. The Connell House was a significant landmark property that was victim to the failure to protect it from demolition by neglect and obvious vandalism. The county's been faced with a very long, protracted series of difficult decisions when faced with a property owner who would rather erase the landmark home and the coastal habitat that surrounds it in favor of a new structure that clearly dwarfs the landmark home previously there. Many observers of this project now believe the county has acquiesced to the demands of a single, wealthy property owner over the county's responsibility to protect our irreplaceable historic properties and the sensitive coastal environment. I urge you to develop a more powerful regulatory framework for the protection of historic properties, so this will be our final loss. As a retired International Society of Arboriculture certified arborist, I strongly disagree with the project arborist finding. The proposed transplanting of native trees has a high chance for tree failure. It's common professional knowledge that they are not viable candidates for a successful transplant process. The proposed plans before you are in violation of the intent of the new home not to exceed the footprint of the landmark home. Further, the loss of the native trees will cause even further degradation of the habitat at this property. Approval of these plans sets clearly a negative precedent for the future of protection of historic assets and our sensitive coastal environment. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the dais, in the chambers that would like to address the commission?
Set.
Go ahead.
My name is Kent Seavey. I'm an historic preservation consultant. I did some of the early work on this. If you want a footprint, you want those things, you don't have to go buy them. They're in the county records. They are available through the State Office of Historic Preservation free. So I would like to begin my remarks by stating that my colleague and I, who teach at MPC or taught at MPC, architectural history for years, and with field strips, it took us 4 years to find that Moitra house sitting in the trees up there, driving that coast. And when we did find it, we were delighted and surprised. And then when we heard that somebody had come along and without permit bulldozed the trees on the top of that, oh, my mistake. And continues to do this on, and who hired a very, very good preservation / structural engineer to look at the damage that, quotes, had been done to the trees, realized it was done damn near professionally by side cuts on supporting blocks rather than maintaining that historic house, and then was able to get this far by doing it. That took 21 years to get done, and that individual is still here trying to get this out of the way. If we have rules, if we are trying to do this, and I have to deal with it every day with municipalities, you, City of Monterey, City of PG, the rules are tight. The Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation or for historic preservation are tight, very tight, and it sounds like the rules for Pebble Beach somehow, or the rules for the county, don't seem to count. Although I've worked with the county steadily throughout this, they always are very tight with me. I don't understand why this loosey-goosey stuff is going on. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else from the chambers that wants to address the commission?
Hello, it's good to be before you yet again. I wanted to spend a little time doing some fact checking, which has become my favorite pastime on this project. The following quote is from the staff report. Within the Single Hill Road enclave, the size of residential structures ranges from 4,534 square feet to 8,106 square feet with a mean floor area of 6,716. That's the mean. The Lombardo letter states the home is, quote, almost twice the average size of every other home in the neighborhood. False. Fact check. Twice 6,716 would be 13,432. But as you well know, this is 8,290. The other claim, or one of the many claims in that letter, is something about an illegal demolition. Fact check, a demolition permit was issued. 42 mitigation measures had to be crossed off before the permit was finalized. For your reference, the permit number is 15CP01573. I'm going to switch gears on more fact checking, and I wanted to bring up this idea of the within existing footprint that Commissioner Hartzell, you were talking about with the handprint. January 2023. You approve this project. You approve this project. Right here, it says within existing footprint. Okay? This is the one this is the hand. Everything in yellow in this is outside of the existing building. This is how it's been done in Monterey County. You look at the building pad. So when the gentleman here presents for his clients, he's doing it this way. This you approved. This is 2 stories. Okay, so when we talk about the rules, we're saying apply the same rules, the same standards. With the Board of Supervisors meeting, they were talking about footprint. One person did say that, gosh, this thing is a little big, 12,000. So taking 12,000 to 8,000 and staying within the footprint and following the precedent that you sent 2 months before. That's what we did. Okay? We looked at how do we look at footprint? Literally, around the corner, you did develop footprint, and you went outside of it as long as you were within the building pad. So what are we doing here? Like, why can't you just apply the same common sense rules to this project? I mean, how much longer are you just going to let them come up with new thing after new thing after new thing? I mean, how many mitigations have we been through? It's extraordinary. The whole meeting from the Board of Supervisors was about alternative 6, reduce project. I guess I get my extra 45 seconds too, right? I didn't realize public comment guys get to have their own PowerPoint. This is absurd. This is within the neighborhood. The other thing I discovered, I came with receipts. So the neighbor here, the whole time has been, through his attorney, claiming that his house is 4,000 by pointing to old property records that are wrong. But he's just got a PLN right here, so his current house is 6,500 square feet, okay? But he's been doing math with bad data, and he's been doing this for a long time. I've got receipts. This is your own document. Staff has it as well, okay?
Could you wrap it up, please?
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to make sure I got just as much time. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the chambers that would like to address the commission? If not, then we're going to go and see if there's anybody in Zoom or any emails that address this project.
There are no additional hands up on Zoom and no additional emails at this time.
Thank you. With that, I'll bring it back to staff for any comments, clarifications.
Thank you, Chair. 3 things. The last speaker was Satish
Chair?
Kadivar. I just wanted to identify him because he didn't say his name.
Hold on for a moment.
I just wanted to give the applicant an opportunity to respond to public comments if she wanted to.
That would be fine,
He
but
had a
I wasn't
time limit,
I
so
wasn't
just want to make sure
sure.
that we're fair.
He had
It was under a
3
time limit, and I think
Yeah.
he was responding as comment as public.
And I thought that he was responding for that. So with that anyways, the applicant is welcome to come and address the commission again and try to keep it as brief as possible. Thank you.
A couple of items brought up the height. Somebody said 22 feet. There were a number of items in the resolution. Resolution was rushed because we didn't have a project to present. It was a concept, right? So, but we referred back to alternative 6, which defined the view shed, the new house should avoid significant impact on the view shed, which we did. We brought it down to 25.5. So 25.5 is on my project. On the project down the road is 27.5. 27.5 entire project, mine is just in the middle. Most of the height of my project design right now is 22.5 inches. There's only one section that bumps up to 25.5 inch. Okay, so one thing I really want to respond to the public comment. When is going to come time for them to stop attacking me personally? Do you have any evidence? A tree was removed. We went through this tree thing, many hearings. I complied with it. I implanted everything they asked me to do. What else do you want me to do? My plea to you is that spell out how many trees do you want me to put in? I put in. And the previous order from the Board of Supervisors said that if the tree does not survive, you have to replace it. That condition is still in Mary's list. You know, Mary doesn't let me get away with that one, so she still got that. And remember, just to demolish the house, I had 45 condition of approval. It took me 1 year to get approval. And then I submit the project. We went through 5 iterations of bringing the project down. So I have 7 grandchildren, 2 children. I'm very proud of my family. I want them to come to this house. I need bedrooms. I need bathrooms. But I put it in such a way that you don't see it from outside. It doesn't come big. And what's wrong with this picture to have a family live there? And you don't want family? You don't want kids coming? I mean, I don't know what. My neighbor has close to 7,000 square feet footprint, and he has all of his grandkids there. I've been denied. literally denied. There is no way to say this. I don't want to sugarcoat it. This is pure discrimination. If it was a white man, this wouldn't happen. This is a woman with an accent, period. And my property right is gone. 21 years. How long do I go? I don't want to die before I build this.
Thank you. With that, bring it back to the staff for any clarifications, comments.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, staff would like to clarify that the claim that was made by by Tony Lombardo that the EIR was full of measurements of the Connell House is not true. From what staff found in the EIR, the building was described as building footprint area, and that was only measured at 0.11 acres, which when converted to square feet is approximately 4,790 square feet. And that's 0.16 acres minus the 0.05 acres of hardscape improvements. And that's the only way that the project was described in the EIR. And secondly, there were some contentions about a number of trees having been taken out with that restoration permit that went through. I just want to clarify that it was a restoration plan for planting of 2 replacement trees and a 5-year monitoring program. One of the trees failed very late in the monitoring program. It was replanted several times and failed. And then it wasn't replanted. Instead, they moved ahead with the plan that went forward with PLN 100338, and that's why it was required as a condition of approval on that project. There was also a part of that, just for clarification, was implementation of a dune restoration plan. There was approximately 2,500 square feet of area that was in the dunes that had been disturbed by the occupants when they were there, and so that was already restored in full. So other than the 1 replacement tree that's proposed for in front of this structure, the rest of that has been cleared and is a cleared violation. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, we bring it back to the Planning Commission. Commissioner Shaw?
Thank you. When this house was purchased by the applicant, was it on any of those historic lists? Was it labeled as a historically significant home?
Through the chair, no, it was not.
Through the chair, at what time did that happen? I mean, I know I read this somewhere in the report or watching the various Board of Supervisors meetings, but please refresh my memory.
Through the chair, it was after, I believe it was after the completeness, and it was that was what triggered the need for an EIR. So the EIR draft was started, my goodness, like 2015. I'll have to look back at the records. I'm sorry, I can't be more specific.
Thank you for that.
Got it. It was 2014. Thank you.
Through the chair. So I believe she said she purchased this in the early, mid-2000s. When was this? 2004. Thank you.
If we can, the public hearing is over, so unless we ask specifically the staff and the commission, this is a time for staff and commission. Thank you. Any other commissioners? Commissioner Deal?
Yes, thank you. I think I can probably get some other people to agree with the fact that I would like for this to be finished. I think it's gone on way too long. I would love nothing more than to come to a conclusion. My difficulty in doing so today, I'm willing to assume that everything has been resolved in the past with respect to the issues relating to the historical preservation. Whatever it was, we've dealt with that. The supervisors have said what they've said. I want us to do what the supervisors told us they would like us to do. And so I'm really concerned pretty much solely with, are we complying with the spirit and direction of the Board of Supervisors, and what conditions specifically are going to apply to this project so that we have a clear expectation of what it's going to look like when we get to the other end. I think that the applicant was quite clear that there was not any desire to evade the tree replacement requirements, but in fact, the proposed the requirements for tree replacement on the original tree replacement, the tree loss permit, have not been met. And so when we're looking at what we are going to see visually, we are looking at it without the information of what that tree is going to be like. We're being told that it can't grow there, it doesn't want to grow there, we're not going to have it. And so that changes the way this whole thing's going to look. Now, do I care? At this point, not a lot. I'm not going to say that 50 feet one way or the other really concerns me, but having a clear understanding of what conditions apply to a project does. So if there is to be any kind of an easement, I would like to see it specified in the details of the resolution for this project. If there is going to be tree replacement that hasn't been done that's going to be done, I'd like to see it referenced. It is nowhere referenced in our resolution that it even exists in this project. So as the project stands, unfortunately, I can't say, well, whatever, we finally got to some place, we should just go ahead. As much as I might like to do that out of sheer fatigue, I couldn't. I am not moved by considerations of other people's projects in this case, because this project has already been discussed and confined by the Board of Supervisors as a result of the discussion of all these sorts of things to comply with the footprint, to comply with, as it said in the part that I brought forward, the expectation of height and size and all of that. So that's no longer, I don't feel like it's our complete ability to decide those things. I think we're trying to decide whether we're making a recommendation or making an approval that's consistent with what the board said. So in order to do that, I need to see all of the conditions. I need to see how, I think that the discussion of swapping out bits, I need to be really specific in my understanding that of what the board said, so I'd like to pull those pieces out, and I felt my colleague's discussion of footprint was helpful. But I don't, it comes down to it, if there was concrete over it, I don't really care about whether it's going to be house or it's going to be deck, but I don't want to see anything going beyond it at all, ever, because that's what I understood the board to say. So, that being the case, I don't see that there's any particular option except to continue it to get a resolution that contains a clear understanding of what all the conditions that apply to this property would be at the end of this approval or denial or whatever. But I would be inclined to move forward and say, yeah, whatever, if I knew exactly what whatever was. I'm not going to move any kind of intent because I can't do that absent that information. So my current inclination is to move that we continue this project to a date certain as in discussion with staff in order that it can return with a resolution that reflects the entire picture of exactly what the property restrictions and allowances will be should we choose to approve the project.
I guess I have
Commissioner Roberts.
Sorry. I have a question about what Commissioner Deal just said, because I'm kind of lost, and because there is a tree replacement condition, I think, and so I'm curious to know what specifically you're looking for.
Commissioner Deal.
Through the chair, there's a tree relocation discussion in the current resolution. There's not a tree replacement mention of the trees that have not been replaced from the prior permit. We've talked about moving the trees that we are in the way, the currently existing trees, but we haven't talked anything about the ones that are not there, the one great big one that's not there from the failed restoration.
Commissioner Roberts.
Thank you. Then I guess my question is for staff about what the status of, and I think it's specifically if there was only required, I thought I remembered that 3 trees had been illegally removed, and I thought 3 trees had to be replanted. But if only 2 had to be replanted and the one in front hasn't sustained, what the county's assessment of that tree? Is the 5 years passed and so now that tree doesn't have to be replanted, or what?
No, through the chair, that tree is still required, and it's a condition of approval on PLN 100338, which was attached in the resolution, and all its conditions of approval were attached to this staff report. and that is a tree replanting in front of the proposed structure. And it's, as was discussed at the Planning Commission before, it was required to be a 48-inch tree and placed in front of the view, within the view shed from Fanshell Beach. And that would close the remaining requirement that had not been met on the previous restoration plan. I thought that it was memorialized in this resolution in one of the evidences under the tree removal. I don't have it right in front of me in the second, but I thought that I had included a reference to that tree as well, and that it's a condition of approval on the other project. Both projects are active on this site, so the requirements under PLN 100338 are still going with the land. I did prepare a draft condition of approval that would describe the conformance with conditions of approval for PLN 100338 that would better memorialize that to meet the request of Commissioner Deal. But what I'm interpreting is being asked is kind of more graphical representation, specifying where the easement area is going to be, specifying where all the tree replacements are going to be, and maybe also adding a little more to the requirement for ongoing survivorship. That's what I heard. So to prepare that, yes, we would accept to come back with continuance and we could find a date. Did I answer your questions, or do you have some more?
I was going to follow up with the replanting of the tree in front. Is the new condition, I guess if we don't have it in front of us, does it require that it lives and you keep replanting until it lives, or what does it say?
Through the chair, the condition that I'm referring to is actually attached to the older resolution 23037, and it requires, let me pull it up. It's
And
called,
just for clarity, that is Exhibit D to today's staff report and packet.
Thank you. It's the Monterey cypress tree replacement and protection. The owner shall cause a 48-inch box cypress tree to be planted in a location that will provide screening of the new development when viewed from Fanshell Beach and 17 Mile Drive. So that has not been implemented yet because although we had a submittal in 2023 of the removal and protection plan retaining all of the trees with protective fencing and boards and some site photographs documenting tree protections, that one wasn't required for more steps prior to the demolition. But it also has ongoing monitoring first year, second year, third year after planting, and if the replacement tree dies, it would have a replacement tree on a 1-to-1 ratio. So there is a draft condition of approval on the design approval that you're looking at for the relocation of the 3 trees that are proposed, and it's written right there in our resolution. I can read it if you like as well, but it follows similar language that they would be relocated to the location that the arborist Nigel Belton recommended, very close by from where they were removed, and they would have to show full survivorship for this same period of years as per his recommendation, and they would have to be replaced again if they failed.
And I guess to follow up on all this questioning, I guess my preference today would be, I have a feeling based on history of this project, it's going to be appealed to the Board of Supervisors at some point. And so, by somebody, and regardless of our decision. And so to me, I would like to say what we need to say about this project, pass it or deny it, and allow it to move on. Knowing that there is language regarding the trees are important to me, and I know that Mrs. Matafor feels discriminated against, but for me personally, that was an egregious behavior that triggered this, everybody watching this project. Whether it needed to be monitored for 21 years, that's not for me to say, but that initial act is what started this process. And so it's important to me that the tree language is, she's agreed to it, she's willing to do it, and so it's, if we can memorialize that in this project, I would be willing to move this forward. The easement issue also is important to me, and I'm not sure what staff would suggest or if there's a resolution to that today.
Thank you. Any other commissioners? Commissioner Deal?
Thank you. I think Commissioner Roberts makes excellent points here. If we were to move this forward, the easement language consistent with easements on other properties in this area that goes right up to the building would be important to me. Clarifying that and just, isn't one of the trees proposed for relocation one of the replacement trees? So we're clarifying the relationship between the replacement tree and relocating the replacement tree. That should be called out separately and discussed at length, because it was replaced on purpose, and now we're allowing a move of it if we approve this project. I am not comfortable with any suggestion that an overhang would allow any kind of dune plants to grow under them. So I couldn't support that. It's a bad precedent, and I think it's just delusional, personally. So if we were to move forward with that, and the condition we talked about that brings forward every previous condition that we've had, I think that could be done, but not the expansions, not the trade-offs, and not the overhang. And I'm with Commissioner Roberts. I think from my point of view, the issues around this project have continued to not be personal in any way, shape, or form, but to be behavioral, and to be the sense that that even coming forward with the plans were inconsistent with the rules, and variances were requested from the rules on every step of the way. It's never been, this is a project coming forward that's fully compliant with the land use plan, which would not have taken 21 years. So I could go, if I could be persuaded by Commissioner Roberts, if we had those things in front of us to say, yeah, okay, fine. But I'd like to see them in front of us before we did that. So perhaps this compromise might be a very short continuance to a date certain with the language in front of us, so that we can understand it all in one place, rather than being referred from one permit to another permit, which I found personally difficult to follow.
Any other commissioners? Commissioner Shaw?
All right, thank you. Just because I have to say it, I agree with my fellow commissioners. I would also be willing to move this forward with those, conditions and changes. I wanted to speak on the historical significance of this home, and that is not impacting my decision. This is not a case of a property owner buying a historically significant home to their knowledge and, trying to just cram a square peg into a round hole in that sense. Not that the project still was, as Commissioner Deal mentioned, not aligning with lots of other things, but as far as the historical significance, the fact that she purchased this, thought I can potentially build something on this and not have to worry about this being a home that needs to be preserved. And then suddenly, years later, additional cost and time, having constraints placed on the future development is kind of wild to me, and I would be extremely frustrated with that part of the process. But yeah, I like what Commissioner Roberts and Commissioner Deal have added to the discussion, and I would also be willing to move this forward and just get on with it.
So
through the chair,
there's a motion on the floor, but I'm not sure if there's a second or if somebody else wants to make a different motion. Commissioner Hartzell?
Just a clarifying point. I have heard mention of screening trees, and I want to clarify if there's a desire from the commissioners to have screening trees. I heard a plan for screening trees from the view from 17 Mile Drive. I am a little unclear on whether they're included in the trees that I saw that are being moved are actually on the signal side. Am I right about that? Yes? So just, are we looking for screening trees? And if so, can we say so the applicant only has to do this once?
Commissioner Deal?
Through the chair, yeah. Here's the deal. The tree issue was the first thing we got. There was a restoration plan that involved planting a tree that would be screening if it had been planted and maintained. It's currently not there. So all those years ago that we had this project come in front of us, we said, that tree was taken down in error, let's replace that tree. The applicant said, yes, let's replace that tree. That tree is not there at this moment in time. One of the other trees that was slated for replacement is being asked to be moved. So I'm asking that when we come back, we clarify all of that and say, yes, the tree that we anticipated would be replaced, must be replaced, as we talked about, really for real, and that what are we saying about the replacement tree, which went back into a location that was chosen for it on purpose in response to the previous violation, and now it's being asked to be moved. So I want to know how that works and what's the justification for saying, yeah, that first place we picked, yeah, that wasn't the right place. It was inconvenient, so now we're moving it again. So the screening tree question about whether we wanted more screening trees was not on my radar at all because of the dune habitat.
Thank you.
Any other commissioners, whether we have a second or if we have a different motion or commission? Unless we...
I don't know, did I make an actual motion?
Yes, you...
I suggested that I might be ready to consider thinking about a motion, but I don't think I got any further than that.
Okay, no motion then. So unless we are ready to move forward and we include all those pieces that Commissioner Deal mentioned and just move it forward, I'm not sure, I'm sure we could include it in the motion and see how that goes, so that the commission doesn't have to go through the whole process, because it was mentioned that it's going to probably be appealed one way or the other. And so my only, again, concern was in terms of property rights, in terms of the LUAC passing at 8-0, and which is great, and that this was not a historic, it was not in a historic list when the property was first bought. And I'm not sure we can say, well, can you plant 2 trees or place that tree back to where it was recommended, so in case it doesn't take, I don't know, but I don't know if we really want to bring it back, depends, one way or the other. Commissioner Deal?
Yes, could I ask staff to put the staff recommendation back on the screen?
Thank you, Dave.
Weren't there some either-ors with respect to interpretation of the overhangs and all that the staff also discussed?
Staff was not recommending that those be part of this, and they're not in the plan set that's included. They're just in exhibits as considerations. So if it stands as it is, condition number 8 specifies that there will be no proposed decking at terrace level or pervious pavers on the sand dune at the west edge, and that it'll be landscaped.
So,
and there's nothing in this that agrees with that swapping of the corner to put in the master bath bedroom.
Okay. So just wanted to be sure what the staff was recommending, and I wanted to look around my fellow commissioners to see if there was any dissent to that, just generally, and whether we would be willing to, I mean, and back to the LUAC, I'm sure the LUAC is just as tired of this as anybody, if not more so. It's been difficult for them as well. And they've done a great job. So I would be willing to in this case, move staff's recommendation with the clarification that the the addition we talked about incorporating by reference all of the prior conditions, with the statement that the restoration trees need to be dealt with as according to the restoration plan, like completely, and that isn't going to run out because the clock has run. So we want to make sure that particularly that large tree in the front corner stays. And that we get a conservation easement consistent with conservation easements in our previous discussions of that area, which would be up to and around the house. Because reason for that being that one of the discussions we've had around this project was whether or not areas that had been disturbed by construction were protected. And so the house, the building envelope kept expanding. And so I wanted us to clarify that in the easement, that was not going to happen this time, that the easement goes up to the edge of the house like it does in the other places where we've had. The setback question, I believe that the Board of Supervisors instructed us that it would be within the footprint. So following that, if there is a variance required for building within the setbacks, I think that has to be written in, and I think one of the members of the public brought that forward, that would be a finding we would probably be wise to include. The reason for it being that we didn't want to disturb any additional dune habitat by relocating the building project. So with all of that, I would, and I'm not usually willing to do this, but I'd be willing to say to the staff that we would incorporate that into the resolution, and I would be okay with moving approval under all those conditions.
I'd second that.
Commissioner Deal made the motion, seconded by Commissioner Roberts.
Could I just ask the chair, does that make sense to staff? I think this is what I said, a lot of stuff. I just want to make sure that I didn't get lost.
Okay, so through the chair, what staff heard is the swap is of areas A and B is supported.
Whatever the staff recommendation says.
But not the swap that was presented by the applicant in an exhibit. Staff understands that we would incorporate by reference within condition number 9, the conformance with conditions of approval from the other permit, all prior conditions. And also this resolution will be clarified with a statement that one of the trees that's proposed for being moved is one of the trees from the restoration permit with a different PLN number, and all of its condition compliance will be dealt with under those specific requirements, which is much more extensive than 3 years. And also this will include that an update to the conservation scenic easement deed condition of approval that was agreed to under PLN 100338 for 2-to-1 area. This will now return to full lot. Actually, even the EIR had it limited to 1.67 acres, which left approximately a half an acre. So that would be contrary to the EIR, but could be moved ahead. And then also, for safety's sake, adding a variance for the setback, allowing the building to be in the front setback, and the finding would be supported by evidence that it would disturb less additional habitat as the reasoning.
If I could, yes, that sounds right. I would only comment that you can't be contrary to the EIR. The EIR is an informative document. You can be more protective should you choose to do so. So I would be concerned about anything saying that we went against it, because that would indicate that we were being less protective. And the other thing was that the replacement tree from the original tree removal permit, I want that extended, the monitoring for that as well, extended into the future, since the tree does not currently exist. But yes, that being said, I think that was what I meant. Thank you. You guys listen good.
Thank you. So we have a motion and a second. Before we vote, are there any other commissioners' comments, questions? There Being none, then all those in favor of the motion so indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, everyone. So we now move to other matters, and that's, we go to item number 5, review and reappoint of Planning Commission liaisons to land use advisory committees and staff.
So for the, the Planning Commission had requested that staff bring forward a review and reappointment of Planning Commission liaison to the Land Use Advisory Committee. This is item number 5 on the agenda. That liaison tracker is attached. And staff doesn't have all that staff would like to add for consideration, and then otherwise just look to any questions, comments, input that the commission may have, is that we, so this liaison tracker, excuse me, and staff tracker, yes, is complete. I think while we have this item open, staff did want to just acknowledge to the commission that we have received anecdotally word that we are likely to receive some additional resignations from the Carmel Unincorporated Highland LUAC in the near future. So we really just wanted to give a heads up on that. We have not received additional resignations, but we do anticipate some coming forward. And a part of this also, we do want to acknowledge that our clerk of the board, or clerk of the commission, is working on finalizing the notice to go out to recruit an additional LUAC participation, especially for those LUACs that do not have or have struggled to maintain a sufficient number for quorums. So that is also in the works. So tangentially related to this item, but we felt it was important to share for your consideration and discussion.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, any comments, questions, concerns? Commissioner Roberts?
I think I was the one that requested this, mainly because we've had, new planning commissioners, and I wasn't sure if everybody knew where they were supposed to be. And in all these vacancies, I'm guessing these were Commissioner Daniels' positions and are now Commissioner Hartzell's. Is that what's happening, or?
That is the assumption that staff is under.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure, since that was the intent of today, to everybody knew where they were supposed to be.
Yeah, so if that's the assumption and there is no concerns or other considerations, but yes, please.
Okay, Commissioner Deal?
Yeah, I wanted to say that, as you'll note, most of these are District 5, and we had typically tried to use the commissioners appointed from the district, but we ran out of time and energy. And so I would certainly propose that Commissioner Hartzell could fill in all these spaces, but that's a lot. And the Greater Monterey Peninsula in particular, Commissioner Roberts has been doing a bang-up job with that, and I'm wondering if it would be possible to switch for Commissioner Hartzell to be the backup and Commissioner Roberts to be the primary on that one in particular. And let's see. And whether Commissioner Hartzell would like to be primary for the Del Monte Forest, I'd be happy to switch with that one, should she care for that. Those were just the ones I was going to bring forward. Otherwise, the vacancies, and in all, I think looking through this, in all cases, the vacancies were those positions filled by Commissioner Daniels when she was a commissioner, not before she became in her current elevated role. Abandon us.
Commissioner Hartzell?
I'm happy to fill the vacancies as listed, which would be Cachagua, Carmel Valley, and switch with Commissioner Commissioner Deal on Del Monte Forest, and switch with Commissioner Roberts on Greater Monterey Peninsula. Happy to.
Commissioner Shaw?
Thank you. Just a quick question. If I remember correctly, we're supposed to attend, the primary is supposed to attend a LUAC meeting, and I'm wondering what is, if I'm correct, what is the frequency of that, and then what are we supposed to do there?
So per the rules, it is, the attendance is intended to be at least one per year. It can be more, and I don't think it is specifically called out what the scope is. Generally, as I understand, when commissioners do go, it is one, to make themselves available to the LUAC should they have any questions, comments, concerns on any items, to attend if the LUAC feels that there are any particular items that could be controversial or benefit from attendance of the liaison. And then also, I think, to be kind of present and ensure as well that the LUACs are operating according to kind of expectations and guidelines for LUACs. So that is my understanding, and I'll let the commissioners otherwise if there's anything additional that they incorporate.
Thank you. So one more question then. So do either we wait to hear from our LUACs that were assigned, or how would we, do we just show up? Like, yep. Okay, thank you.
Through the chair, I also make it a practice, and actually probably more than anything else, just to reach out to the chairs of each of the LUACs to find out what's on their minds pretty frequently, even if it's done remotely. So that way, you're not just showing up, you're saying, oh, we'd really like you to come, or we have this thing coming up or we're worried about. That would tip me off that would be a good time to go. But it's more just that communication, I think, is a helpful thing, even if it's just via email, but phone calls are nice too.
Commissioner Roberts?
That's all I was going to add to is generally I've just gone to introduce myself and say, please reach out to me if you have any questions. Let me know if you have a project that you ever see that you really could use, help with, or, whatever it is. But I think more than anything, it's to know they have a staff representative there, but to know they also have a planning commission representative if they had questions or concerns.
Thank you. And would the planning staff liaison send an email to the different commissioners regarding when this is happening, or?
I'll say that for me, I get regular emails. So my commission, for example, the Toro LUAC, meets the second and fourth Monday every month. And so most of the notices that I get are cancellations because there aren't any items available. But then, like, we just got one that has 2 projects coming up, and so then I'll try and put that on my calendar, and if that's one I can attend, then I attend, or, But typically, if you are connected to it, staff will send you the agenda, but you're going to get one every 2 weeks that says it's canceled most of the time.
Yeah, so staff does include the planning commissioner primary liaison and the backup liaison in the distribution list for those LUAC meetings. So if you are primary or backup, you should be receiving those notices for your respective LUACs. And if you're not, I think that what we will do is double check we'll update and double check our distribution list to ensure they are correct and accurate with regard to planning commissioners. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other commissioners? Commissioner Mendoza?
Yes, I'd like to see if Commissioner Shaw would be interested in becoming the primary and me being the backup.
I would love to. Thank you.
Could you clarify, is that the North County LUAC?
That is correct.
North County LUAC. Okay, any other commissioners? Okay, with that, we'll open a public hearing, And if there's anybody in the chambers that would like to address the commission on this particular item, this would be a time to do it. And you have about 3 minutes. And then if there is anybody in Zoom or any emails that would like to address the commission on this particular item, this would be the time to do it.
Chair, we do have a hand up on Zoom, Margie K.
Thank you.
Thank you. I was 7 years on the North County Coastal Land Use Advisory Committee, and it was always appreciated when a planning commissioner would come to our meetings. Yes, most of the meetings are canceled because there's few triggers anymore to actually bring applications to the LUACs. That's a shame. I also want to announce sad news that longtime North County LUAC member David Evans, who had been chair for many years, died April 6th. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anybody else on Zoom or any other emails?
We have no additional hands up on Zoom and no additional emails.
Thank you. And then bring it back to the commission for any other comments, questions, concerns. Commissioner Roberts?
The only thing I'll add for members of the public, if you're listening, we would love to have additional LUAC members on pretty much every one of our LUACs. So if there is anybody interested in participating in a local neighborhood overview of projects before they come to the Planning Commission, we would sincerely appreciate your help and feedback, and reach out to us and or staff for more information.
Thank you. Any other commissioners? With that, we need a motion to reappoint Planning Commission liaisons to the Land Use Advisory Committees, and a second. I see Commissioner Deal makes the motion. We need a second.
I'll second it.
Mr. Commissioner Gomez seconded the motion. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion so indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries unanimously, except for Mr. Getzelman.
To abstain.
And therefore, we move to item number 6. And staff, can you present the information on the acknowledgement and resignation of Kimberly Canier?
Yeah, staff just wants to look to the commission for acknowledgement of the two noted resignations that were received by the clerk. And again, indicate that we do send thank you letters to individuals who are departing from our land use advisory committees. And should you wish to share any words, staff will capture those to make sure they're incorporated in those correspondence. Thank you.
Thank you. Any commissioners, Commissioner Deal?
Yes, thank you. I just want to follow up on Commissioner Roberts' excellent public service announcement by specifically saying that the Carmel Highlands Land Use Advisory Committee is having a generational change and mass resignations after the resignation of their most recent chair, who is a dynamic individual, and they're going to be well below the numbers needed to operate if we don't actually have some interest in the community in providing the input for community character for that neighborhood. We do have one application coming forward that we've nominated, should be on, I think, the next agenda, but I think that will leave us after the current folks are gone with 2, which is not enough to have a meeting. It's more a conversation. So just putting it out there to the public and to anybody who may have contacts in that area, we really need to have a robust LUAC in the Carmel Highlands, Carmel area. As we've seen here, there's lots of applications for things like short-term rentals, things of that nature that are important and really of huge interest to the local community. And so if you know anybody, it would be really helpful if they would be willing to serve. It's not an onerous thing. They don't meet every time. They meet at the fire station, which has got a great view. Sometimes people even bring cookies. So I really hope we can drum up some additional support for that LUAC.
Thank you. Any other commissioner? And again, we're receiving this report in terms of the resignation of Kimberly Kinnear from the Del Monte Forest Land Use Advisory Committee and Norman Levy from the Carmel Unincorporated Highlands Land Use Advisory Committee. So I don't think we need a motion or a second on this. This is just acknowledgement. Okay, let's, sorry about that. And is there any public comment on this particular item? Anybody in the chambers or on Zoom or any emails regarding item number 6 for public comment?
We do not have any hands up on Zoom and no additional emails.
Thank you very much. With that, we move on to department reports. Madam Secretary.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. Very briefly, I would like to, well, this briefly but very happily, I wanted to announce we've completed our recruitment we have 3 principal planner positions on our planner team, and we have successfully offered and gotten acceptances for 3 of those positions. I want to congratulate Ms. Fiona Jensen and Ms. Jackie Nickerson, who are both here in chambers today. They were both successful in that process and will be respectively each overseeing a team. We have 2 teams now of our current planning planners, and we enthusiastically wait for May 12th, which is our official start date for our 3rd principal planner, whose name is Sarah Wickel, who will be joining us from the city of Scotts Valley, will be coming to join our team to oversee our advanced planning team on May 12th. So when Ms. Wickel is here, we will likewise bring her to introduce her to you. So we're very happy to fill those positions and really just want to congratulate. It gives us a great team, and I am grateful to now have one job. Just 2 other quick updates for the commission as well. The McDougall project, which was the builder's remedy, or which was the application for single-family residence and 2 accessory dwelling units, 1 junior, 1 regular, in the Oakshire subdivision of Carmel Valley Ranch. Should you all remember, that came before you. That was appealed to the Board of Supervisors. That project, the Board of Supervisors took action on and have remanded that back to the Planning Commission. Given contention over applicability of builder's remedy law to the project, staff is working with applicant on that. So please, that just as an update, and that may come back to you in the sometime in the future here. The other is just to advise that our 6-month transition period for inland vacation rentals, allowing operators of unpermitted vacation rental operations to come in and apply for their permits and or come into compliance with the new regulations. That date passed in April, and so we have commenced our active enforcement for vacation rentals that are not permitted in the inland areas. So should you get any inquiries or calls, that enforcement action is underway. That's all I have. Happy to answer any questions should you have it. Otherwise, thank you very much.
Any questions from the commissioners? If not, then this meeting is adjourned at, I'm not sure what time it is, but let me check. 12:28 on my phone.